Chapter 741, I have come to rescue you. Anyway, I don't think we will be able to go to the bottom layer where the seal is this time. Zixia Fairy shook her head, wearing a very serious face. She looked at the bizarre sea and said in a deep voice, "This array is based on the heaven and earth's energy. It looks like a checkerboard with the dotting stones as the pieces. Each piece represents a certain position. Among all the pieces, there is only one that can take us to the other side." Hearing this, the cultivators behind exclaimed, "What? If what you say is true, then with the moving stones, the array could change itself any minute. Then how can we pass it?" The cultivators became very desperate. The spell's power was beyond their comprehension. Even Zuke had no idea how to break it. Zuke's face got very serious. Judging by this, the array is probably superior to an ancient ominous. I don't think I can break it with my king of tough-acting fist. It seems that we have to find another way. The cultivators shook their heads. In fact, they really wanted to stick to the path, since they had overcome many difficulties to get here. Now they had not even found the fate, not to mention an ordinary spiritual herb. They did not want to go back empty-handed. As for Zuke, he did not mind taking another path, since he did not care about finding the fate. He only wanted to find out what Zixia Fairy intended to do and stop her from destroying the seal of the Five Elements mountain. Suddenly, Zixia Fairy said, "Joker, I want to give it a try. Don't move and wait here." Then she gently tiptoed out and flew upward like a fairy. "Wait!" Zuke shouted abruptly. He was too late, since Zixia Fairy was almost about to land on a moving black round stone. She landed on it gently, but even so, the stone sank a bit and caused a series of ripples. The ripples changed the moving tracks of other stones, and more ripples appeared. At last, the already complex checkerboard became even more complex. Even a person who knew everything about the game would have had no idea what was going on. Suddenly, a little cracking sound commenced, as if something was going to come out. Zixia quickly jumped back. Bang! A heavy metal sound erupted. A long, rusty iron rope suddenly appeared out of the water and locked on her feet. Then she was harshly pulled back. Bang! Great waves tumbled across the sea. All the black and white round stones were moving up and down. The entire sea began to spread in all directions. "For God's sake, the array has been activated." She is in really bad luck. I never thought she could accidentally activate the array just like this. Back off, or we will be devoured by the sea. The cultivators began to run in the other direction. At the same time, Zixia Fairy, who was tied tightly on the black round stone, was losing her energy, as well as her vitality, by the very minute. She looked very desperate, but she still shouted to Zuke, "Joker, run away. Leave here now. Screw the array. It must be even more powerful than an ancient ominous. I don't think I can find any way in the system to break the array." Normally, Zuke would run away under such circumstances, but he would not be able to forgive himself if he ran away like this, leaving Zixia Fairy behind. Zuke raised his head and saw her face had turned completely pale and rather scary. Obviously, her body was almost full of the lifeless chi. "I have to take a risk to save her by using the divine tracking emblem." Zuke tightly clenched his teeth and was about to go forward to rescue Zixia Fairy. Bang! Zuke turned around and was shocked by what he saw. The road behind him had been devoured by the darkness. The darkness looked very bizarre, just like the darkness in the void, and was rather similar to the color of the black round stone. Crap! Zuke cursed. It is even more scary than the moving round stones. Zuke hurriedly flew upward without any hesitation toward Zixia. "Joker, don't come. It's very dangerous." She had no idea the road they had taken earlier had been destroyed and got very anxious when she saw Zuke flying toward her. Her face was twisted. Clearly, she was suffering a lot. Being devoured by the lifeless chi seemed very painful. "I won't leave you here," Zuke said firmly. "I am not a man who is afraid of death. If I leave you here, I would be ashamed of myself and could never call myself a man." He grasped Zixia Fairy's hand and activated the divine tracking emblem at the same time. The divine tracking emblem burnt out, but he and Zixia were still there. "I am doomed. The divine tracking emblem does not work here. Joker, leave now. Zixia said with all her strength. Zyke forced out a smile. For God's sake, the road has already been destroyed. I cannot get out of this place. The lifeless chi was about to invade his body. Zuke clenched his teeth and jumped to the white round stone right next to Zixia. As soon as he landed, a long, rusty iron rope came out and tied him. Joker. Zixia Fairy was stunned when she saw that Zuke had also gotten stuck. In fact, I can. Before she finished her words, she began to spit out blood. Her blood was quickly absorbed by the stone, and her face got even more pale. Zixia, are you alright? Zuke was frightened. This area is really scary. Even Zixia Fairy cannot get out. What? Why am I not invaded by the lifeless chi? What is going on? He looked down and was stunned. A huge amount of energy was erupting out from the iron rope and the energy was rushing into his body. So, the white round stone is giving me all the energy that the black round stone extracted from her? Zuke was shocked. No, this is not right. He used his divine strength to find out the origin of the energy. After a while, he found it. It was a pool of energy that was as significant as an endless starry sky. A cultivator like Zixia Fairy who was in the Mahayana, the great vehicle stage, could not have such a powerful energy. Obviously, this energy did not belong to Zixia, rather, it must belong to a creature living beneath the sea. How frightening this is! If anyone has got energy like this, he must have lived as long as tens of millions of years or even hundreds of millions of years. Zuke was shocked. But soon, his face began to look pale too. His body could not take this much energy. His body was already full of energy and, if he continued to allow the energy to get into his body, he would explode. Crap. This is no better than dying from an invasion of the lifeless chi. But why on earth would there be this amount of energy inside an array full of lifeless chi? Why would I happen to find it? I see. There are countless arrays in this world, and among the most powerful and intricate ones, there must be the life door and the death door. Zixia just happened to step on the death door, and I happened to step onto the life door. Right next to her? Is it because I am extremely lucky? But this does not make any sense. Can it be possible that this is because of the red rope of marriage? Thinking of this, Zuke was so surprised that his eyes flew wide open. Zixia, don't be afraid, I have came to save you. Zuke said, while holding her hands and transmitting energy to her. In just a few seconds, the lifeless chi in her body was almost cleared away. Zixia, who had already passed out, slowly began to open her eyes. Then she looked at Zuke with great surprise and exclaimed, Joker, what are you doing? Stop, otherwise, you will die. No. Zuke smiled and stared at her with a lot of emotion. As long as I can save you, I will do it, even if it would cost my life. Chapter 742, Are you gonna die or not? Joker, stop. No. You are hurting me. You are talking nonsense. I am very gentle. How can you feel hurt? Joker, you know you will probably die if you keep giving me your energy. Listen, stop giving me your energy, and get out of here. No. Zixia, even if I wanted to leave here, I can't. The power of the array has covered the entire region. There is simply no way out. What? Hearing this, Zixia Fairy turned around and was shocked. The sea had spread out and covered the entire land, which meant this place had been locked in completely. Just like Zuke had said, it was too late to leave. Right at this moment, Zuke looked at her, saying gently, Zixia, can you promise me one thing? If I die, take my ashes with you. In the future, whenever you are in danger, throw my ashes at whatever is bad, and you will be fine. Hearing this, Zixia was stunned and terribly upset by his words. She had never met anyone who would be willing to sacrifice his life for her. In the past, she had heard about this sort of thing and thought that it would mostly happen between a couple. However, she had also heard a lot about cultivators who would kill their partners to keep their own lives. Even if these were just rumors, she still believed them. After all, The cultivation world in fact was a world where the weak would be killed by the strong. Many people would sacrifice everything they had to enhance their cultivation or to pursue being immortal. It was quite normal that people got killed or robbed. Even I would not sacrifice what I have got to help others. But now a pure and naive young man takes the risk of losing his life to save me. How noble he is. How can there be such a man in this world? The only reason I can think of is that he likes beauties and is willing to save beauties. But I am not a beauty dud. I haven't got the time to make a beautiful body. If it were not for my managing to temporarily lower my cultivation level, I couldn't even be here. Why he is doing this for me? I am just a ugly stranger to him. Why is he being so nice to me? Zuke was feeling very good now and was happy that he had found a way to release the already abundant energy inside his body to Zixia Fairy. Otherwise, his body would have already exploded. Joker, why are you being this nice to me? Zixia Fairy asked gently while staring at him with a complex facial expression. Zuke smiled and shook his head. When someone does something, he just does it, and you don't need to find a reason to explain his motivation. The reason I saved you was because I wanted to save you. Hearing this, Zixia Fairy got silent. With the energy continuously transferring to her, she felt very warm and energetic. At the same time, she also got very worried. In fact, Zixia Fairy could not die, since she came inside the cave with her magical body, not her real body. Even if she died now, her real body would immediately come out and would be kicked out from this place due to her higher level of cultivation. That was why, from the very beginning, she kept asking Zuke to leave her behind. She never thought Zuke would do such a thing for her. This handsome young man would even risk his life to give me his energy to keep me alive. Zixia Fairy sighed and did not want to tell Zuke the truth when she saw his innocent face. I can't tell him that he is just saving my magical body. This is too cruel. Even if I tell him, there is nothing I can do to get him out of here. Never mind. Just let him die with the idea that he has tried his best. Zixia, have ever eaten roasted chicken wings? Zuke asked suddenly. Zixia Fairy was a bit surprised and had no idea why he asked such an interesting question. She shook her head and answered seriously, no, I haven't. He is about to die, so I have to stay beside him and talk to him. Neither have I. I heard that it is the most delicious food in the world. I am afraid that I no longer will have the chance to eat it. Zuke raised up his head and said sadly, what a good young man, what a noble young man, and now he is going to die here. The only regret he has is that he has not tasted roasted chicken wings. Zixia, can you promise me one more thing? After I die, can you do me a favor to find a young man called Zuke and ask him to cook a few chicken wings for me? Then you can lay them in front of my tomb. Zixia Fairy nodded and promised. I promise you. Good. I am very happy to leave this world without any regrets now. Then he slowly turned his face away and said no more words. He was not moving either, as if he had already passed away. Seeing this, Zixia Fairy's eyes were watering up. She was terribly moved by Zuke's kindness. May you have a good eternal rest. I will never forget you, and when I get out of this place, I will make a most splendid tomb for you. I will learn how to cook the roasted chicken wings from Zuke and lay them in front of your tomb on the day of your death anniversary each year. Zixia, have you ever eaten the stinky tofu? Zuke asked suddenly. What? Zixia Fairy jumped. I thought he had already passed away. The stinky tofu? My goodness, can a piece of tofu still be eaten when it's gone smelly? I suddenly recalled that I haven't even had the chance to eat stinky tofu. I have been told that Zuke can also cook it. I am afraid I can't eat it in this life now. Zuke sighed. Zixia Fairy was completely stunned. Then she realized that Zuke was still transferring his energy to her with his hands on her hand. He is still alive. How can this be? He is in the golden core stage. How can he have this amount of energy? Even I cannot do this. This is too weird. Zixia, why are you so silent? Please be an angel and chat with me. Zuke stared at her and said gently, I didn't have any friends when I was young. I never thought I would die alone too. I am here. I will talk with you. I would never let you die alone. Zixia Fairy said aloud. "Thank you. You are such a nice person." Zhu Kai smiled and asked, "Zixia, can you sing?" "I can't. I am not good with songs or any other forms of arts." Zixia Fairy shook her head awkwardly. "Never mind, I can sing, and I would like to sing for you." Zixia Fairy nodded instantly and smiled. "Wait a minute." Zhu Kai took out some audio equipment and pressed the on button. The next moment, beautiful music came on. "The past is in the past, red leaves are buried under the ground, nothing has ever changed, you are far away from me and are wandering in the air." Hearing the sound, Zixia Fairy was in a daze. The rhythm is so beautiful, and at the same time, it is also a bit sad and seems like the sound from heaven. His voice is just so wonderful. The next minute, Zhu Kai began to sing in a higher pitch. The love and the hatred begin to tumble in the sea of misery. No one can ever run away from their fate. You are a darling to me, but I can't get close to you. Maybe I have to make myself believe that we are destined to be together. Zixia Fairy was totally stunned and deeply moved by the sound. Realizing Zhu Kai was about to die, she felt terribly sad. "Ahahaha." A delicate female voice came from the musical device. Suddenly, Zhu Kai did not move at all, stopped singing, and closed his eyes. "He's gone." Zixia Fairy was very upset and felt a complicated feeling she had never felt before. "I really hope he is still alive. He is such a good young man, a real man." "God, why do you have to take away his life? Why does such a wonderful young man have to die at this young age?" "Goodbye, Joker. You are the best man I have ever met since I woke up. I will stick to my words and make your wishes come true. I will always remember." "Oops, I forgot the lyrics. I am sorry." Zhu Kai suddenly turned around and smiled at Zixia Fairy. Zixia Fairy was speechless. "Are you gonna die or not, for God's sake?" Chapter 743, Turn Around. "I have a surprise for you." At this moment, Zixia Fairy was speechless and shocked. She had thought that Zhu Kai was already dead, but now she found that Zhu Kai was still quite energetic and was giving her energy. This is unbelievable. How can a young man of the Golden Core stage have such a huge amount of energy? Even a cultivator of the Mahayana, the Great Vehicle stage, couldn't be like this. Zixia Fairy couldn't help herself asking, "Joker, how can you have this amount of energy?" Zhu Kai's face got slightly serious and he gestured quizzically. "Zixia, it's not important. Don't pay too much attention to the details. I think we should not give up hope. We have to find a way to break this array." "You want to break this array?" Zixia Fairy shook her head. She was not that gifted at dealing with this situation. The array they were stuck in was a huge one, with the sea as the checkerboard and countless stones as the pieces, which moved constantly. "Let me have a try. I know something about this subject. Maybe I can break it," Zhu Kai said gently. This time, he was not joking. Earlier, while he was singing and chatting with Zixia Fairy, the moment when he became silent, he was not pretending to be dead. Instead, he was checking the screen of the system. He sifted through the entire market of the system and found nothing useful but a book about chess. The contents were mainly some basic instructions on how to play. Zhu Kai read it and found that people had to solve a problem to win this game. Across the world, there is both yin and yang, dark and light, life and death. They all coexist while contradicting each other. As long as we break the balance between them, maybe we can break this array, Zhu Kai said, while looking around confidently. Zixia Fairy was a bit surprised and nodded. But this array is too complex. Each stone represents a certain spot and is constantly changing its position. Neither you nor I are capable of dealing with this. Hearing this, Zhu Kai nodded. Zixia Fairy was right. The difficulty of this array lay in the fact that it had too many formations that were constantly changing. Many cultivators would find it very hard to break. But Zhu Kai was very lucky, since he happened to stand on the life door, while Zixia was standing on the death door. This must have had a lot to do with the red rope of marriage. Among the countless stones, there was only one stone that stood for the life door, and Zhu Kai had found it. Now that I have found the life door, there is nothing to be afraid of. No matter how difficult this array is, once I manage to decipher it, the entire array will crumble. Zuke was right. As long as he could break the balance between the energy and the lifeless chi, the array would be broken. This was just like playing chess. The lifeless chi was represented by the black chess, the energy was represented by the white chess. No matter how complicated the game was, once the person who held the black chess or the white chess lost, the game was over. Suddenly, Zuke's face turned serious, and he looked at Zixia Fairy. Zixia, I have a bold idea. What idea? Zixia was a bit surprised. I am going to get into the sea. What? Zixia Fairy was now shocked. Get into the sea? What sea? Wait, don't tell me he is planning to get into this sea. Zixia Fairy tried to persuade Zuke not to do so. You can't get into this sea. It is full of the lifeless chi. If you get into it, no matter how much energy you have got, you will be devoured by it in just a few seconds. So what? I am not afraid of death, Zuke said with great determination. Well, do you have any other options? If we just stay here and do nothing, we will die. Now we have thought of a way, why not try it? Hearing this, Zixia Fairy was silent. Yes, he is right. If we just stay here and do nothing, we will die anyway. We should try our best as long as there is a shred of hope left. But, jumping into the sea, will it really do? I am afraid it would only push both of us closer to death. Zixia, see you later. Zuke had instilled a huge amount of energy into her and, after, he released his hand and stood heavily on the white stone and sank into the sea. Joker! Zixia Fairy exclaimed. Even though she had known Zuke would get into the sea soon, she never thought he would do so immediately without any hesitation. However, there was no use for her to cry out his name, since Zuke had already vanished, without leaving any trace. She sighed and felt upset and sad. She did not know Joker that well, but now she felt like she had lost someone of great importance to her. Never mind. After my magical body dies, I will try to come back and do everything I can to break the array. I will also set up a monument to you. At the same time, Zuke was smoothly sinking into the sea. He was not being tortured by the lifeless chi. Instead, the deeper he went, the more energy his body was taking on. If the energy keeps rushing into my body, I think I will be dead before I reach the bottom of the sea. Zuke frowned. He knew the key to breaking the array lay in the bottom of the sea. As soon as he took away the object that was giving out the energy, the array would be crushed. But the energy was too powerful in the sea. His body could not stand it too long. Right. Zuke suddenly came up with an idea. He quickly took out his beast soul bag and opened it. The moment he opened it, the sound of cursing came out. Bastard! How dare you? How dare you imprison us here? As a member of the Xuanzan royalty, I will never ever let you go once I get out. I swear no one could protect you or rescue you when I get out. The cultivators who were at the threshold of the crossing calamity stage were shouting. Zuke made a surprising face and said, I am sorry. My name is Joker. This bag does not belong to me. I simply got it by accident. Why are you all inside? What? The cultivators were a bit surprised when they found out that the young man who had opened the bag was not Zuke, but someone else. Don't worry, I will release you immediately, Zuke said, and he let all the cultivators out of the bag. They all flew out as quickly as possible. Before they had the time to ask who the young man was who had released them, they were astonished by the place where they were. What a wonderful place this is. Where are we? Why on earth is there such a huge amount of energy? At last. I have been waiting for this for such a long time. God bless me. They began to laugh out loud. For them, the energy was a priceless treasure. As long as they had enough energy, they would be able to reach the crossing calamity stage. Turn around, I have a surprise for you. While they were all getting out of the bag and being excited, Zuke suddenly began to speak. Hearing this, the cultivators turned around and were stunned. Although Zuke looked like another person completely, they would never be able to forget Zuke's smiling face. The next minute, they were all hit by Zuke with a long black stick. Crap! They cursed to themselves and were so angry that they thought they were about to spit out blood. Bang! 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 They all fainted before they had made any sounds. Zuke hurriedly pulled them over and used their bodies as a shield. With the cultivators' bodies absorbing the energy, he could smoothly go deeper again. He was sinking deeper and deeper. Chapter 744. Feeling very happy. Bang! Soon, a cultivator suddenly exploded. His body had absorbed too much energy, and because he never used the body cultivation inscription to cultivate his body was not as tough as Zuke's. The explosion wave dispersed the energy around Zuke and made it a bit easier for him to go down to the bottom of the sea. No one can stop me getting to the bottom of the sea, Zuke said with great determination. Bang, bang, bang. The cultivators' bodies exploded one after another. Soon, after the last cultivator's body exploded, Zuke arrived at the bottom of the sea. It was very murky, and there were neither beautiful corals nor lovely fish. Due to the combination of the energy and the lifeless chi, the water was very muddy. Zuke felt like he was in a place that was full of mist, and he could not tell the energy and the lifeless chi apart. However, when he made his first step forward, a ray of extremely bright light appeared. The light was as bright as the stars. Inside the murky water, it was just as if the sunlight had penetrated the mist. Zuke felt very hopeful. He did not think about it too much and hurriedly activated his Hell King's prison suppression style to stop the energy getting into his body. Then he strode forward and rushed toward the light, which was getting brighter and brighter. But the next moment, the light suddenly dimmed and a rather black light appeared, and, all of a sudden, a huge amount of lifeless chi erupted all around him. Crap! Zuke was surprised. Then he finally saw what was in front of him. It was a stone plate, half white and half black, and it was giving out first the energy and then the lifeless chi. Suddenly, he saw a ray of extremely bright light, and felt a huge amount of energy trying to rush into his body. Then, when the light turned black, he could feel a large quantity of lifeless chi. What on earth is this? It's so weird. Zuke was stunned. A stone plate that was only as big as a person's palm was able to support such a powerful array and was giving out a huge amount of energy and lifeless chi. Even a cultivator who was as powerful as Zixai a fairy could not cope with it. This is really scary. I have to take this damn thing away and get rid of it, in case it kills more cultivators. Zuke's heart began to beat faster, and he hurriedly walked forward, with a big smile. Bang! All of a sudden, the stone plate gave out the lifeless chi and stopped Zuke from getting closer to it. Zuke was thrown forward a few hundred feet and even made a somersault. At the same time, a huge amount of lifeless chi got into his body and began to devour his own energy and rapidly shorten his lifespan. Crap! You think you can kill me like this? I have been in this cultivation world for such a long time and have defeated so many powerful cultivators and have acted tough successfully millions of times. I swear I can tackle this damn stone. Zuke frowned, waving his hands, and shouted in a deep voice, "System, help me to get rid of this damn stone plate." Ding! An ancient life and death wheel detected. This object is a holy object. To keep it, the host must create a holy weapon keeping pavilion. The system said coldly. What, a holy weapon? Zuke was so amazed that his eyes opened wide with surprise. I am so lucky. I even found a holy weapon. My goodness, this is a holy weapon. A holy weapon. Zuke was so excited to find a holy weapon that he wasn't even able to buy from the system's market. Yes, let's create a holy weapon keeping pavilion then. Let's create it, he shouted to the system. The next moment, the sound of the notification sound echoed. Ding! Congratulations to the host on successfully creating a holy weapon keeping pavilion by consuming 50,000 acting tough points. Crap, 50,000 acting tough points? Are you kidding me? Zuke stared at the screen of the system with big eyes. On the object keeping space, an extra holy weapon keeping pavilion appeared. It was divided into countless little boxes, and the first box was already opened, while the rest of the boxes were still closed and had question marks on their surfaces. While Zuke was looking at the second box, the system said, to open the second box, the host will have to spend 100,000 acting tough points. Screw you, I will not open it. Zuke shouted angrily. Before, He had worked hard acting tough in the East Continent and won more than 300,000 acting tough points by telling everyone that he would take the responsibility of protecting the four great continents. If he managed to win 2 million acting tough points, he would be able to upgrade the system into version 10.0. By the time, he would know how to make the space-breaking spell and go back to Earth. But now, he had been tricked by the system, and he had spent 50,000 acting tough points. I am really pissed off. Ding. The Holy Weapon Keeping Pavilion is already opened. Are you going to keep the ancient life and death wheel? The system asked coldly. Yes. Zhu Ke said abruptly. Never mind. 50,000 acting tough points is no big deal. Anyway, I have got a holy weapon. The next moment, an invisible and magnificent power erupted out from Zhu Ke's body, just like the time when Zhu Ke pulled out the living holy tree in the upflowing sea. Bang! The bottom of the sea began to shake, as did the ancient life and death wheel, as if it did not want to leave. After a while, the ancient life and death wheel got smaller and went into Zhu Ke's body. Ding! Congratulations to the host on getting the ancient life and death wheel. The sound of the notification echoed. At the same time, a vortex appeared near his stomach. The vortex began to absorb all the energy as well as the lifeless chi. After a short while, all the energy and all the lifeless chi went back to the ancient life and death wheel. Then the entire sea started to fall apart. Obviously, the array had begun to crumble without the support of the holy weapon. Zhu Ke hurriedly opened the screen of the system and began to check the ancient life and death wheel. Ancient life and death wheel. Level: low class. Status: a bit broken. Energy: 80%. Helps the host or others to increase their lifespan. Lifeless chi: 90%. Helps the host or others to shorten their lifespan. Brilliant. From now on, I will be able to control life and death. Zhu Ke said with great excitement. System, hurry up. Increase my lifespan by 100 million years. Ding. Due to the power of the host's lifespan can only be increased by 500 years. The system declined Zhu Ke's request. Well, if my span could really be increased by 100 million years, I would not need to worry about being killed by the energy. Joker, where are you? An anxious sound came. Zhu Ke turned around and found the entire checkerboard was gone. The enormous sea had changed into a small pond. Looking up, Zhu Ke saw Zixi, a fairy, standing at the bank and looking for him anxiously. Zhu Ke smiled shamelessly. System, decrease my lifespan by 500 years, and make me look older. Make me look like a dying man. As the king in the acting world, I have to act like a real old man. Chapter 745, The Ultimate King of Acting. The system notification alert sounded. Ding. The host possesses a Taoist body. Before you merge with your Taoist body, your lifespan remains a total of 250 years. The system is therefore unable to deduct 500 years off his life. Zhu Ke was stunned. What did this mean? As a mighty void training stage powerhouse, having just 250 years of life is ridiculous, even if he split the lifespan between his current body and his Taoist body. Screw you. System, quit playing me, scum. I'm in the void training stage, so I should have at least a few thousand years of life. How could it have shrunk by that much? Zhu Ke demanded angrily. The system replied in a flat tone. As per cultivation progression, a normal cultivator is granted 1,000 years of life when they reach the void training stage. However, you are a being who crossed over with just your soul. You don't belong to this world, so your lifespan didn't increase accordingly. What the hell? So it's because I'm not a local? Wait up, so what if I'm not a local? I cultivated with my ability, so who are you guys to deny the prolongment of my lifespan? What you're doing is blatant discrimination against foreigners, discrimination against people who crossed over. Zhu Ke said indignantly. What lifespan others had from cultivation, he only had half as much. It was too unfair. Ding. The host possesses a Taoist body. So far, your Taoist body has absorbed most of your lifespan. When you merge with it in the future, you will be able to complete yourself. Your lifespan will then return to normal, and it'll even surpass other cultivators. the system answered smoothly. Upon hearing its words, Zuke heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that his life years were all transferred to his Taoist body. According to the system, he is still flawed and will only be perfect when he merges with his Taoist body in the future. I'm so glad. Zuke sighed, while expressing his relief. He then tried to exit the system interface. Suddenly, the system's voice rang in his ears. Ding. Why does the host sigh while saying that he's happy? Zuke jumped in shock. What's the situation? Has the system learned to show concern? That can't be it. Why would it care about such words? Why is it acting so strangely today? Has it become more humane? However, he realized what was happening the next moment. Such a situation had happened before. With each system upgrade, it would become more and more human-like. Currently, it's only version 5.0. It could already show care toward the host from time to time. If it managed to upgrade to version 10.0 in the future, would it come out and chat him up idly even when nothing was happening? Zuke couldn't help but smile. He's already looking forward to how the system would be like when it upgraded. I'm sighing because I'm relieved. I felt glad, from the bottom of my heart. Zuke answered. Why? Press the system. Its voice still cold like a machine. Zuke immediately glanced toward the sky in a 45-degree angle and sighed heavily. Because no human is perfect. You will have flaws, as long as you're human. What's that got to do with being happy? Of course it does. Before this, I have always been perfect and godlike. I'm so perfect to the point that I'm lonely. However, I didn't want to be a perfect man. It's too tiring to be a god. I want to be a normal man. And now you're finally telling me that I have flaws, which means that I am a human. How can I not be happy about that? Zuke replied agitatedly. The system fell silent and finally ceased all response. After a while, Zuke punched his chest a few times. Blood flowed out of his mouth, and he turned pale. Then, he emerged from the waters with great difficulty. He didn't use the ancient wheel of life and death, only because he was worried about it getting too out of hand. It'd be a little horrifying if he suddenly turned old, then turned young the next instant. So, a change of battle plans. He would use the hero tactic, where he would play a hero who survived with all his might despite suffering grave injuries. Swoosh! The waters of the lake sloshed and splashed, and Zuke's body emerged from it. Joker! Zixai a fairy cried out in joy. Zuke's appearance surprised her so much. She was already taken aback when he broke the spell. However, she also thought that the courageous and kind young man would never survive it. She can't believe that even after the spell's broken, he has managed to come out alive. To her, this is an ending that has far surpassed the best-case scenario. However, soon, the smile on Zixai a fairy's face froze, and it was as if something squeezed her heart. The teen who had been handsome and elegant, who always had a sunny smile, had now become drained and pale, with blood trailing down the corners of his mouth. He agonizingly dragged his body over with trembling legs and with all his strength as he tried to hold up his faltering body. He had suffered injuries so severe that no one would ever be able to imagine them. However, that was not enough to defeat him. He still held his chest up, strong-willed and courageous, and on that pale face, he tried to squeeze out a sunshiny smile. Joker! Zixai a fairy called out softly, all joy and surprise giving way to complicated and stirring feelings of worry and tenderness. Miss Eza, I'm back. Zuke struggled to smile. He continued to walk, step by step. He never stopped. Every step taken was so heavy that it was as if he would fall any instant, never to rise again. Every sound made when his feet touched the ground seemed to tug at her heart for some reason. What a strong boy, what a courageous boy. Although he's only at the golden core stage, you wouldn't find a man like him even if you combed the whole world. He would throw his life away without hesitation to save an ugly girl he had met by chance. He didn't give up in the face of danger. He plunged into the sea, destroyed a horrifying spell, and came back alive, courageous, and heroic. At this moment, he is not a person who has suffered grave injuries, but a man with the air of a king returning victoriously from war. Countless conflicting emotions tore into Zixia Fairy's heart. In her life, she has never met someone this excellent, someone who would give his life for her. She even felt that, if she were still young, maybe she would fall for such an outstanding young man. Such a pity. Sigh. Zixia Fairy sighed crestfallenly to herself. You were not born when I was born. When you came into the world, I was already old. I am to you, as far as the edge of the skies. You are to me, as distant as the corners of the ocean. Joker, in the end, we still belong to two different worlds. Miss Eza, I. With great effort, Zuke had managed to walk back. However, right when he was about to speak, blood gushed out of his mouth. Joker. Zixia Fairy had collected herself, but her expression changed right away once she saw Zuke vomiting blood. She came forward, and, in an instant, a green pill appeared between her fingers. She pushed the pill into Zuke's lips and said hurriedly, "Hurry up, take the pill." "Okay, thank you, Miss Asa, you're such a kind person." Zuke took the pill and smiled politely. At the same time, he silently wiped the cold sweat in his heart. He had punched himself too hard just now, and now he had honestly hurt himself. That mouthful of blood was real as it could get. He was the ultimate king of acting. Zuke gave himself an imaginary pat on the shoulder and felt that he was awesome. However, upon swallowing the pill, the wounds in his body entered a state of recovery even before he could use the system's automatic recovery function. Zuke was shocked. With a blank expression, he turned to Zixia Fairy. "Miss Eza, what kind of magical pill did you feed me? My injuries are healing so fast." "Nothing, just a normal healing pill," said Zixia Fairy casually. Though she said that, Zuke was confident that the pill she gave was not as simple as it looked. At the very least, it must have been a precious pill of 8-star quality. Otherwise, it was impossible for it to have such strong healing powers. "Joker, how did you manage to break that spell?" asked Zixia Fairy curiously. Zuke laughed, a weight off his shoulder. "I'm just lucky. Other than the way of spells, I've also known a little about Chinese chess. Just now, I used myself as a chess piece and entered the chessboard to fight against it. I didn't realize that this game of chess would be so dangerous. That many a time, I almost lost my life. At the point, I even thought that I was battling it out with heaven itself. But you still won in the end." Zixia Fairy commended Zuke from her heart, with stunning eyes fixed on him. Even without suppressing her strength, it would not be possible for her to destroy this vast, horrifying spell. Zuke sighed softly at her words instead and looked up toward the sky. He murmured under his breath, "I had simply won the heavens by half a move." Chapter 746, An Eerie Scene. He had beaten the heavens by half a move. Zixia Fairy was astonished. Never had she thought that Zuke could do such a thing. In the world of cultivators, heaven is the only thing that is revered. In the whole world, who would dare to say that they could surpass the heavens? Zuke was the only one who had dared to utter such words. This young man standing right in front of her. If it was still the Zixia Fairy of the past, she would think that this lad was too arrogant. However, after seeing how Zuke broke the formidable chessboard C spell, Zixia Fairy had begun to think otherwise, because to a cultivator at the Golden Core stage, a chessboard C spell of this level was comparable to going against the heavens. Also, now, not only did Zuke break the spell, but also he survived and said that he had just beaten the heavens by half a move. Strangely enough, he sounded almost too humble. When Zuke said that he had only beaten the heavens by half a move, it wasn't just to act tough. It was his exact sentiment, that he did not have a full win. Why? Because he felt indignant to have spent 5 million acting tough points for that. If he had claimed the celestial artifact without spending a single acting tough point, then he would concede that this was a full win. Thanks to the pill given to him by Zixia Fairy, Zuke's injuries healed at the speed of light. He was now almost fully recovered. After this last dangerous encounter, Zixia Fairy appeared to become hesitant. "Joker, why don't we stay here? Once I'm out, I'll bestow upon you a piece of enlightenment," she said, looking into Zukei's eyes. She didn't want Zukei to risk his life for her anymore, for this path had changed too greatly and become too dangerous. She could no longer predict future dangers. Zukei immediately put on his most determined look as he answered righteously, "Miss Eza, please, don't tell me such silliness. If I, Joker, am a coward who fears death, I wouldn't have come here." "But, no buts. I already knew that there would be dangers when I decided to come, because I believe that to become great, I will need to go through millions of calamities, to experience many dangers, to be fearless, to be reborn in a bloodbath, and finally to emerge into greatness." Zukei's words were as firm as concrete, there was no trace of fear on his face, and he looked domineering and powerful. Zixia Fairy still felt slightly reluctant, but, in the end, she agreed with him. On the one hand, she felt that what Zukei said made sense. After all, cowards who fear death and avoid dangers will never become great. On the other hand, she knew that Zukei would never stay, so instead of parting with him, they might as well travel together. That way, she could take care of him just in case he got into a bind. She rebutted him no more. She nodded and they continued on their journey. After the enormous chessboard sea spell had been broken, this place went back to its original form. The sea had become a lake, and what seemed to be a borderless space before was now surrounded by stone walls. A deep tunnel opened up from the crevices of the stone walls, revealing a pitch-black passageway. Zukei and Zixia Fairy looked at each other for a moment. Then, they strode forward together, entering the tunnel. Along the way, it felt like they were back to ground zero. There were some spells to keep out intruders, but they were all easily broken by Zukei and Zixia Fairy. They made swift progress. As the spells and traps increased in complexity and number, Zukei and Zixia Fairy worked well together and demonstrated more and more chemistry. Most of the time when Zukei was blowing up one corner of the forbidden area, Zixia Fairy's magic art would follow up just in time to blow up the other end of the area, causing it to collapse in a heartbeat. Sometimes, Zixia Fairy would strike first. Zukei would then cover her swiftly, and together they would break the spell quickly. To have such chemistry was uncanny. It was as though they were telepathic, and it confused them both. Regarding this, Zukei felt secretly happy. He assumed that it was just the red rope of marriage doing its magic and pretended to be oblivious to what was happening. There was nothing but focus on his face, and they continued to go deeper into the tunnel. A few hours later, a ray of light finally shone through at the end of the tunnel. It was either an exit or another entry point. Zukei and Zixia Fairy halted their steps, and their expressions turned solemn as they exchanged a glance. "We've got company," said Zixia Fairy first. "Lots of them." Zukei nodded. Though they were not yet near the end of the tunnel, they could sense hundreds of other cultivators' auras. There were obviously many cultivators gathered there. What was even eerier was that their breathing was stable and stationary, except for a few who were moving slowly. If not for the fact that they did not attempt to hide their auras, Zukei almost thought that it could be an ambush. Weird. Could it be that there's a big piece of enlightenment inside? Zukei frowned in suspicion. Zixia Fairy's face filled with dread, and she disagreed. "No, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid that we have another humongous spell in front of us." "Another spell?" Zukei stirred at her words. He had obtained a celestial artifact from the previous chessboard sea spell. If this spell is as powerful as the former was, could it be there was another celestial artifact waiting for him? Jackpot! Jackpot! I may strike it rich again this time. Excitement rose within Zukei, but it was not noticeable on his calm face. He lowered his voice and said, "Miss Eza, shall we take a look?" Zixia Fairy's brows curved into a pretty frown as she thought. After a while, she nodded and reminded him, "Joker, if you encounter any danger, you have to leave immediately. Don't try to save me. I won't die." Zukei didn't give her a straight answer. He did not want to waste any more time acting tough, so he marched forward instead. Zixia Fairy knew that he was patronizing her, but since he had already moved, she had to follow him. Soon enough, they reached the end of the tunnel. While both had not let down their guards, they had not encountered any dangers yet. until they took a step out of the cave, where both of them froze on the spot. Whoa, this is a vast secret chamber. It was the size of 2 football fields and its stone walls were filled with countless other similar exits from many other tunnels, as though it was the meeting point of all tunnels, a nexus. Zuke and Zixia were just some of the many who were walking out of the tunnels and thus did attract much attention. Of course, this was also because there were not many breathing humans left here. Zuke finally understood the reason behind the hundreds of stable and stationary cultivator auras he sensed in the tunnel. It became apparent what was going on. These cultivators stood as still as the terracotta warriors, in the middle of the chamber at floor level, expressionless. They did not even blink their eyes. What is going on? Have they been held captive? Zuke asked in astonishment. Zixia grimaced too, and she shifted her gaze toward the cultivators who were loitering at the exits. Suddenly, her expression changed. This place is odd. Joker, look at those standing near the exits like us. Oh? He followed her words and looked over. Apart from the side where they were standing, he saw many other cultivators standing at the exits at the other 3 walls. However, at this moment, these people had all fixed their gazes on the space above, as they mumbled soundlessly under their breaths. Zuke instinctively followed their gazes, but there was nothing other than a pitch-black ceiling. I don't get it. There is nothing above. What are they looking at? Asked a stunned Zuke. Logically speaking, shouldn't the cultivators rooted in the middle of the chamber draw more attention than the ceiling? Why did all these people seem so fixated on the ceiling? They also spoke without making any sounds. Could it be that they are using the art of soundless communication? Boom! A loud explosion suddenly came from behind Zuke. Not good. Let's go. Zixia raised her voice as her expression changed. However, they could not make it in time. The tunnel behind him had burst into flames. In the next moment, the tunnel where they had come from disappeared before their eyes, as if it was severed in half, leaving behind a ruin of pitch-black nothingness. Too late, we have entered the spell zone. Zuke shook his head, with his heart heavy. He could hardly contain his eagerness and delight. The more difficult the spell, the more likely that it was supported by a celestial artifact, just like the one he tackled before. Dismay crept into Zixia's voice. Joker, something's not right, look above us. Following her gaze again, Zuke couldn't believe what he was seeing. The ceiling that was black before was now projected with images of cultivators killing each other, going insane, or zoning out. Moreover, those were images of the cultivators who now stood right in the middle of the chamber. It's over. It's all over. They heard someone say from the opposite wall, his voice trembling from profound fear and horror. There's no way out of this calamity. Are we going to end up like them? Chapter 747, A Formidable Spell. Zuke was startled. He turned and looked, only to realize that the cultivators who had stood at the entrances and exits of each passageway, those whom they could not hear this whole time, have now regained their voices. It felt as if a soundproof glass had previously muted the cultivators. Now that Zuke and Zixia have entered the soundproof glass, they could hear their voices. There was no doubt that this strange spell caused the sound insulation. All of a sudden, the cultivators at the entrances and exits of the tunnels had fallen into a state of panic. Why is this happening? Are these hallucinations? They were motionless when they went down, but then they appeared in those pictures just now. What is happening? Was everything they experienced in those pictures real? Absolutely. I just saw someone getting killed in the picture, and his real body died right away. Moreover, there were more than one who died. Then what should we do? The exit is just below, and the way back is blocked. Are we just going to wait here like idiots? Wait till when? They eventually fell silent. No one had an answer, and no one could decide where to go or what to do. They had came to a dead end. Although Zuke and Zixia had just joined the group, they understood some basics of the current situation. The central area of this spell should be at the center of the chamber. Once you reach its inside, your soul would be drawn out and put into different scenarios. Some of the things they experienced would be projected onto the ceiling of the chamber. What a formidable spell! Zuke muttered. his heartbeat accelerating. The scale of this spell was comparable to the previous chessboard C spell. It is entirely possible that a celestial artifact also supports it. This spell is very dangerous. Zixia Fairy looked grim. She stared at the scenes on the ceiling and seemed to see a lot of bad things there. Meanwhile, several cultivators discussed the situation at the entrance to a passage on the opposite wall. Senior brothers, do we have to go down? A fair woman with a small stature asked worriedly. Several men next to her nodded. We must try at least, for we've been trapped here far too long. We can't do anything by staying here either. So long as we can resist all temptations and confusions, maybe we'll get through this spell. That's right. Remember, everything we see later is but a hallucination. As long as we don't take it seriously, it will be fine. Rest assured, all of us grew up together. We would never turn against each other for these fake treasures. Our little junior sister, don't worry, your brothers will protect you. Let's go. The men pretended to be relaxed and comforted the woman with smiles on their faces. Subsequently, they set out from the passage on the wall. Then, as though they were unable to continue flying, they fell directly into the secret room below. There was nothing in the secret chamber now, with only the central area filled with people. However, the single exit to the underground was right at the center. After they went down, the other cultivators all appeared very cautious, huddling together and moving slowly forward. Zuke and Zixia Fairy stood above, together with the cultivators in other wall passages, all eyes on the situation of these brothers and sisters. Sure enough, when they got to the middle of the chamber, they turned stiff immediately as they joined the zombie-like crowd. Whiz! At the same time, a ray of light flashed under their feet. Their expressions became dull, and they stopped moving entirely. What an eerie spell, just like the one when we came in. There is nowhere to hide, Zuke concluded. Then he noticed the flash of light under their feet. A similar light could also be found in other areas. There was no way to avoid the light if they wanted to reach the exit in the middle. Swoosh! At this time, a brilliance suddenly appeared under their feet. It rose from the ground and flew directly to the ceiling, and it became a picture. The group of brothers and sister appeared in the projection. They appeared in a place that seemed like a palace, and their clothes changed. They wore expensive clothes, with many eunuchs and palace maids around them, calling them princess and prince respectfully. An illusory realms test? Zuke guessed. He was somewhat taken aback, but he felt confident about the cultivators. After all, when they entered, they were vigilant and told each other not to take anything seriously. Moreover, judging from the interactions between them, they are genuinely close childhood friends, and the relationship is strong. Their love for their little junior sister is also very authentic. This type of relationship could not be destroyed that easily. In the picture, the group was vigilant. Surrounded by eunuchs and palace girls, they were taken to a spacious palace and sat down separately. They began to talk, and much information was revealed. It turned out that they were princes from different countries, and that they are here to pay tribute to this country. The princess of this strong country is none other than the little junior sister. Zuke stared at the pictures intently and paid close attention to the developments. All of a sudden, the picture flashed, and the scene changed. The group of brothers, armed with swords and armor, appeared on a battlefield filled with warring echoes. Surprisingly, their looks have changed. They are no longer as young as they were when they first went in. Spending several years in the mortal realm like normal humans have made them seem grown up and mature. This time, though, they pointed their swords at each other and regarded each other as sworn enemies. The initial vigilance had disappeared from their faces. Only hatred and killing intent filled their eyes. What a massive army, Prince Li. Do you seriously think that you can emerge as the victor? That's right. By sending so many of your soldiers and horses, aren't you worried that you'll lose most of your military might here, allowing other countries to attack you while you're weak? Ha ha, Prince Wu, I beg to differ. Emperor Ming has said that the winner will marry the princess of the Ming dynasty. Once I win, my country Li will be the allied army of the Ming dynasty. Who would dare to attack us? HMPH, the princess and I are in love, But all of you want to split us up. Aren't you afraid of the retribution? Rubbish. The one that the princess likes is me. Damn you. The princess told me clearly that we are to be together forever. How dare you spout such nonsense here? Watch my sword. Die. All of them raised their weapons and, with twisted expressions, led their horses and soldiers directly to the slaughter. The battle was so intense that it was impossible to stop. Zhu Kei's heart sank when he saw this, and he secretly thought was that it was over for this group of people. What puzzled him most was that, according to the situation in the picture, these people seemed to have spent several years in the illusion. For some reason, they had forgotten that they had been cultivators, and now, they are killing each other for the sake of a princess. Moreover, most important, the princess was their little junior sister. Was it true amnesia or was it a deliberate act? What had happened between them in the years that the pictures were not displayed? All kinds of doubts bubbled in Zhu Kei's heart, but there were no answers. At the same time, the war in the picture ended. After fighting each other to the death, only one person survived. Zhu Kei scanned the chamber. Sure enough, there were only one man and one woman left standing in the group of brothers and sister. The others have fallen to the ground without a sign of life. They bled all over and slowly sunk into the ground. He also realized that the hundreds who had stood in the secret room before seemed to have dropped by half, with only a few dozen people left. What a formidable spell, Zhu Kei repeated silently. He knew that the strength of this spell must greatly surpass the chessboard C spell. Joker. If I'm right, this should be a spell that exploits emotions and human desires. He heard Zixai a fairy whisper beside him. Chapter 748, The 7 Emotions and the 6 Sensory Pleasures. The 7 Emotions and the 6 Sensory Pleasures? Zhu Kei was surprised by Zixai a fairy's words. He knew something about the 7 emotions and the 6 sensory pleasures, which were worldly desires of most people. For example, there were many explanations for the 7 emotions, among which the most popular 2 versions were greed, anger, ignorance, hatred, love, desire, and evil and happy, angry, depressed, thoughtful, sad, scared, and surprised. However, the first version was described in the Buddhist doctrine as greed, anger, ignorance, agony caused by hatred, agony caused by parting, agony caused by unsatisfied desire, and agony caused by losing happiness and reputation. The explanation for the 6 sensory pleasures was quite clear, which were the desires or wishes of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, that is, the color, sound, smell, taste, lust, and truth. Everyone was more or less caught up by the 7 emotions and the 6 sensory pleasures. One who had been isolated from these worldly desires could not be deemed a human being. When Zixai a fairy said it was a spell related to the 7 emotions and the 6 sensory pleasures, Zhu Kei figured out the meaning of it immediately. According to the things that people experienced, they were receiving a test of the 7 emotions and the 6 sensory pleasures apparently. I didn't expect such a miraculous spell could exist in this world. Everyone in this world has indulged in greed, anger, ignorance, hatred, love, desire, evil, color, sound, smell, taste, lust, and truth. I'm afraid nobody could pass this test. Zixai a fairy said seriously, shaking her head. It is not necessarily as you have said. All spells have life gate and death gate. Those who are isolated from the 7 emotions and the 6 sensory pleasures strive for nothing, so they won't came to this place. Therefore, I think there must be a way to break this spell. First, we have to locate the life gate of this spell, Zhu Kei said as he fixed his eyes on the ground. However, he was skillful enough to find enough information from the spell formation on the ground. Look, something is happening to those 2 fellow apprentices. The cultivators on the wall screamed in surprise. Hearing that, Zhu Kei and Zixai a fairy turned their eyes to the image on the ceiling. Among the cultivators who had entered earlier, only a man and a woman who were turned into a prince and a princess were left at this time. The combat had finished. The man had won by killing his fellow apprentices. Finally, he could be with his junior sister apprentice. However, when he returned with drums beating and banners flying and tried to marry the princess of a large country with numerous lavish gifts, Someone told him the wedding ceremony had been cancelled. The emperor had betrothed his only daughter to the crown prince of another country. That crown prince was tall, majestic, and handsome, and he cast the other prince into the shade immediately. The princess accepted her father's arrangement and agreed to marry the crown prince. No, no, Your Highness, you said you would remain a devoted couple with me to the end of our lives, right? The prince was in a daze and sat on the ground in despair. The princess frowned and scolded immediately. Mind your words. I've never said those words. You. The prince changed his expression abruptly. It seemed he remembered how other princes used to say that the princess had expressed her love to them. What a bitchy woman you are. The prince was annoyed and roared angrily at last. The entire hall was in an uproar. Many people had weird expressions, including the emperor, who was annoyed. He ordered the guards to drive the prince away. However, the prince had lost his mind. He rushed to the princess and snapped her neck. Then he was killed by the blades of the guards. The image ended there. In the secret room, the two apprentices had fallen to the ground, their bodies sinking. This scene quieted everyone in this area, including Zhu Ke. In front of them, the fellow apprentices, who had grown up together, walked into the secret room confidently. However, none of them expected they would end up like this. What happened to them during the years which were not shown in the image? How could they forget their relationship in such a short time? Zhu Ke couldn't help but ask with puzzlement. Zixia Fairy shook her head. I'm afraid this is the extraordinary point of this spell, which can erase people's memory gradually. Anyone who enters this spell will be caught up in it and believe the world in this spell is true. Zhu Ke was surprised. If so, how could we break this spell? We have no chance to locate the life gate of it. Zixia Fairy looked at Zhu Ke and said nothing. She regretted bringing Zhu Ke here, because the current situation had gotten out of her control and dropped her a dilemma. She didn't worry about her own safety. If she died here, she would only lose a Taoist body, and her real body would be driven out at most. But if Zhu Ke died here, he would really lose his life. No, I don't want to stay here any longer. We've been here for several months. In this way, we will die sooner or later. Someone who was at the entrance of a passage on the wall opposite to them shouted at this time. His companions agreed. Right. We would rather try our luck than be stranded here. Have you noticed that they headed for one position after entering that room? That's why they started to kill each other. We can choose the opposite way. Oh, after reaching the bottom, we should separate and enter different illusionary realms. Then, we should try our best to survive. Wow, we can try that. Our fates have been predestined. We are on our own. After saying that, they jumped down one after another. According to their plan, they kept a distance from each other and all walked toward the central area. The next moment, the one who walked in the front stopped abruptly. Light appeared under his feet. Then, the same scenario occurred to the rest of them. At last, several lights dashed into the sky and formed several images on the ceiling. They entered different illusionary realms successfully. Zhu Ke said. Then, those people appeared in different scenes. Someone became a scholar, someone became a high official, someone became an emperor, and someone became a beggar. Like before, the images flashed one after another, and the time changed. The scholar studied hard for many years and had become a middle-aged man. However, he had never been able to pass the examination to become an official. The high official was honest and upright at the beginning. However, he was turned into a greedy person who became thirsty for supreme powers. The emperor was an enlightened ruler at first. At the last, he became a fatuous emperor who indulged himself in lasciviousness. The beggar suffered from extreme poverty and bad health conditions. At last, the scholar spent all his savings and hung himself in a shabby temple. The high official was assassinated. The emperor's dynasty was overturned and he was killed by the rebels in his palace. The beggar was beaten up by others when he was found stealing food. Then, he died on a cold night because of the serious injuries. They still ended up miserably, and none of them survived. At this time, the onlookers realized that all of them had died by their own hands. The scholar was obsessed by his official career. He spent all his savings in study but still failed to pass the examination to become an official. At last, he committed suicide. If he hadn't been obsessed with the official career, he might have enjoyed his life by treating study as a pleasure. In this way, he would have survived that scenario. The high official wouldn't have been assassinated if he had continued to be an honest and upright official to the end. The rebellion wouldn't have gone well if the emperor was still enlightened and wise. If the beggar didn't steal or rob from others, he wouldn't have been beaten to death, no matter how hard his life was. They were wrong from the very beginning. Even though it seemed that those who entered earlier killed each other, actually their deaths were caused by their own wrong decisions. So, they also died by their own hands because of worldly desires. Joker, what should we do? Zixi Aferi turned to Zuke and asked worriedly. Actually, she wanted to know what Zuke would do next. I have no idea. We didn't get any useful information from the death of so many people. Now, the only thing that we can do is to enter the spell. Then, we might know what to do next. Zuke shrugged his shoulders. Indeed, he couldn't figure out anything. He also didn't get any useful information after inquiring of the system. The only useful information he got was that the system could provide a function to keep his memory. Therefore, Zuke decided to enter the spell and try to break the spell step by step with the assistance of the system. Chapter 749. Enter the spell. Enter the spell? No. Zixi Aferi shook her head immediately. She had witnessed the power of this spell, which was much more lethal than the chessboard C spell they had just broken. Moreover, Zuke had been seriously wounded and almost killed when he tried to break the chessboard C spell. Now she was really hoping he wouldn't die here. Joker, let's just stay here. Although this is just a small place, it is big enough for us to perform cultivation. If someone breaks this spell in the future, we can leave here. Zixi Aferi said, biting her lower lip. It was quite difficult for her to make such a decision. However, after Zuke risked his life for her several times, she was unconsciously influenced and felt Zuke's life was more important to her. Lady Azza, that won't do. We all know nobody in this world could break this spell. Zuke said earnestly. But, don't say but. As a tough man, I would rather try my luck down there than waiting for death here. Zuku said sonorously, as he looked at Zixi Aferi with his longing eyes. When they had made eye contact, he asked in a low voice, Lady Azza, are you willing to go with me? This was a hard decision for Zixi Aferi to make. However, when she saw Zuke's determined eyes, her mind wavered. Then, she said, okay, I'll go with you. Great, let's go. Lady Azza. Zuke grabbed Zixi Aferi's little hand and clutched it in his palm tightly as they stepped toward the secret room. Zixi Aferi's eyes widened when her hand was clutched by Zuke. Her heart was full of weird and complicated emotions. In this way, she was dragged out by Zuke. At the same time, many cultivators on the wall around them started to fix their eyes on them. No way, someone who is not afraid of death is going down again? It seems they have just arrived. They are quite bold to go down in such a short time. Hey, none of those bold guys survived. Their reckless actions will only lead to their deaths. But the two of them are quite weird. The man is quite handsome, but the woman is so ugly. How did they form a group? I guess they are not cultivation companions either. Then, there will be a good show for us. I'm afraid they won't last long in the illusionary realms. Many people were whispering. However, Zuke ignored them completely. With a wild joy in his heart, he clutched Zixi Aferi's hand tightly, and he jumped down resolutely with a fearless expression. Boom! When they reached the secret room, Zuke felt a powerful restrictive force descending from the sky, which restricted his true core strength rapidly. Wow, now I know the reason. Zuke was surprised. Then, he realized this secret room was an area which could restrict cultivation achievements. No matter how magnificent a cultivator's true core strength was, it would be restricted in this area. That was why cultivators could only fall to the ground and were not able to fly over it. Otherwise, they wouldn't die in this spell of the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. He landed on the ground slowly as he grasped Zixi Aferi's little hand in his palm. It was quiet around them. The cultivators standing in front of them were still motionless. In the fuzzy light, they looked quite like terracotta warriors. Zuke started to investigate the secret room. At such a close distance, What he could see was much more than he could see from above. The ground of the entire secret room was full of thickly dotted spell formations, which were giving off an archaic aura. When he stepped on the formations, he could feel a strand of chilliness flowing into his body. "Find something?" Zixia Fairy asked in a low voice as she looked at Zhu Ke. After investigating the room carefully, Zhu Ke shook his head. "I have nothing." "Maybe we will know something after entering the spell." When he reached the bottom, he tried to locate the celestial artifact. If he could find it, he would definitely open the second grid in the system package for the celestial artifact, even if he had to spend another 100,000 acting tough points. However, it was impossible now. He dove to the bottom of the sea of the chessboard sea spell to find the Wheel of Life and Death. At the risk of being blown up by excessive vital forces, he obtained the celestial artifact at last. This spell was even more powerful. If it was really supported by another celestial artifact, it would be more difficult for him to obtain it. "Let's go. No matter what will happen, I will protect you forever," Zhu Ke said, as he looked at Zixia Fairy sincerely. "No, you should live. Please try your best to stay alive," Zixia Fairy said earnestly. She didn't care whether her Taoist body would survive or not. The young man in front of her must live. Zhu Ke smiled and said nothing. Then, he summoned the system to activate the function of memory protection. The consumption of this function was very low. It would only consume 1 acting tough point per day. In normal times, it was a useless function, but it was quite precious in this spell. With the cultivators on the wall staring at them, Zhu Ke and Zixia Fairy started to step forward. They walked forward sturdily, hand in hand, just like two lovebirds who would die together soon. Their momentum surprised the cultivators on the wall. "Interesting. Are they really cultivation companions?" "Impossible. That woman is too ugly." "Is the man blind?" "It's none of our business. Anyway, they will die soon." "Right. Let's think about what we should do next." Alas, the onlookers sighed, shaking their heads. They had lost interest in Zhu Ke and Zixia Fairy, who had stepped into the spell. After all, they had seen too many people die in that spell, no matter if they entered as childhood sweethearts or if they chose different paths. Now the onlookers had stopped expecting miracles. At this time, Zhu Ke and Zixia Fairy had almost reached the center of the secret room. The spell formations on the ground were denser than before. However, they could still figure out that the ground was separated by the spell formations into more than 10 areas. Each area might represent one factor of the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. "Which way should we go?" Zixia Fairy asked in a low voice as she looked at Zhu Ke. Although they figured out that these areas represented the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures, they didn't understand the spell formations. Therefore, they didn't know the test contained in each area. Zhu Ke was also perplexed because different people had different characters. Zixia Fairy had undergone a lot of factors in her life. If she could choose a test which suited her character well, maybe the test would become quite easy. "My fellow cultivators, just choose one randomly. Anyway, it will lead to your deaths," someone at the entrance of a passage on the wall yelled, shaking his head at this time. "Right. All those areas have been trodden by those who went before, so it is unnecessary to be perplexed. Just choose one. Moreover, if you stand there like that, you will be dragged into the illusionary realms automatically, and you may end up even more miserably." Many cultivators tried to persuade them. Zhu Ke couldn't help but reply, furrowing his eyebrows, "Guys, I don't agree with you. People should have high aspirations. If we could enter the illusionary realm that suits us well, we may really survive that." "An illusionary realm that suits you well? Hey, please choose it," someone said sarcastically. "There are so many illusionary realms here. Even if there is one that suits you well, are you sure you could find it?" "I am really confident I will find it." Zhu Ke smiled. Zixia Fairy was surprised. "Joker, do you understand the spell formations?" "What? No, I don't understand them at all." Zhu Ke shook his head. "Why did you say you are confident you will find the illusionary realm that suits us well?" "Because I have a patrimonial method." "What is it?" "It is choosing a direction by throwing a shoe." As he said that, Zuke lifted one of his legs abruptly and tossed his shoe into the sky. Zixia Fairy and the onlookers looked at him in surprise. Chapter 750, It is a melodramatic love story. Patter. When the shoe fell to the ground along a parabola, it created a crisp sound. Now, the onlookers came to attention and almost spat blood. Give direction by throwing a shoe? Is this your patrimonial method? Damn, your method is too hasty and casual. Nobody gets direction in this way. Zixia Fairy was also shocked. She didn't expect the steady and sunny young man could act like this. In addition, his act was a little bit familiar to her. Unconsciously, a figure appeared in Zixia Fairy's mind. Zuke, he really looks like Zuke. This kind of thing could only be done by that shameless Zuke. As expected, he that lives with cripples learns to limp. Zixia Fairy couldn't help but shake her head. She decided to prevent this young man from staying too close to Zuke if they could ever get out of here. Otherwise, he would take the wrong way. Lady Azza, I've got the direction. Let's go this way, Zuke said in delight as he pointed at the place where the shoe was. Just now, he had used the skill of giving direction by throwing a shoe as he activated the lucky aura. He was quite confident about this, for he managed to find Zhang Hongyan in the East Continent by using this method. It was quite easy to find one among the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. The shoe fell on the spell formation that was on his right. Although he didn't know which test was chosen by the lucky aura for him, Zuke was reassured. With his skill and the assistance of the system, he didn't worry about any risks. Okay. Zixia Fairy nodded her head with a smile as she walked toward Zuke. At this moment, she didn't care which way they would go. In other words, any way chosen by Zuke would be the same for her. They stepped into that area, holding each other's hands tightly. Zuke didn't forget to pick up his shoe. When he put on that shoe, the spell formations on the ground lit up suddenly, and dazzling white light appeared. The next moment, their bodies became motionless. Sluggish expressions appeared on their faces, and their eyes became dim. Their souls mingled with the spell formations on the ground as if they were about to be teleported to an unknown place. Whoosh! Suddenly, the white light beneath their feet gushed into the ceiling above them and created an image. In the image, Zuke became a page boy and Zixia Fairy was turned into a servant girl. They appeared in a lavishly decorated mansion house. The cultivators at the entrance of the passages on the wall of the secret room grew uneasy immediately. Wait, this scene is quite familiar. I remember it. Over 10 days ago, 2 cultivation companions entered this illusionary realm. Exactly. This is the mansion house. I remember it clearly. It is a mansion of a monarch. There is a beautiful young princess in this mansion. She grew up with the page boy and the servant girl. The servant girl and the page boy like each other, but the young princess also likes the page boy. Right. It is a melodramatic and disgusting triangle love story. The monarch discovered the young princess's adoration of the page boy. So, he planned to betroth the servant girl to the page boy, so that he could stop his daughter's infatuation. But he didn't expect that his daughter was unwilling to give up. She still hung around with the page boy and the servant girl every day. Later, a handsome young lord appeared, who tried to chase after the servant girl. I have to admit that young princess is really lovely. As an outsider, I even can't help but like her. Alas, it seems the young man and that ugly woman are doomed this time. The illusionary realm they entered is the love test, which is the most horrible test among the tests of the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. It is a severe test for the love between the servant girl and the page boy. The point is that the servant girl is too ugly. After entering the illusionary realm, they will lose their memories gradually. How could the page boy resist the temptation of the young princess? The servant girl will make the same mistake. Between the page boy and that young lord, most people would choose the latter one. I guess they will recommit the same mistakes of the other 2 cultivation companions. The page boy will choose the young princess. The servant girl will choose the young lord. At last, the furious monarch will order his men to kill the page boy. The servant girl will drown herself in a river after being abandoned by that young lord. What a pity. The onlookers sighed as they shook their heads. At the same time, in the illusionary realm, Ding. The invasion of a restrictive spell which could modify the host's memory is detected. Since the host has activated the memory protection, the system will perform defense automatically. Zuke heard the warning tone of the system as he entered the illusionary realm. He was reassured immediately. As long as he had memories and the system, he had nothing to fear. Joker. The voice of Zixai, a fairy, came into his ear at this time. He turned around and found her ugly face was still not changed. Zuke let out a sigh of relief. This meant the spell was not as powerful as he expected. The spell couldn't even break Zixai, a fairy's disguise art, let alone his heaven-grade disguise puppet. At this time, Zixai, a fairy, frowned as puzzlement flashed in her eyes. Lady Azza, are you okay? Zuke asked, grabbing her hand with concern. Zixai, a fairy, shook her head slightly. It seems I am losing my memories. Many things are becoming obscure in my memory. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Zuke promised by clutching her hand tightly, for he didn't want to miss any opportunity he could to take liberties with her. No, you can't do that. Please be careful and do your best to leave here alive. Zixai, a fairy, said hurriedly, for she worried Zuke would risk his life for her again. Zuke smiled and was about to say something. Suddenly, a crisp voice came from the courtyard behind them. Zhaoan, Zhao Xiang, what are you doing over there? Come here, I have found something interesting. Zuke and Zixai, a fairy, turned around immediately. They found a beautiful girl with pearl-like skin was running toward them with an old-style kite in her hands. She was flashily dressed and her hair was tied up by a jade hairpin. She was cute and lovely. In this quaint courtyard, the girl looked as graceful as a lotus flower on the water's surface. What a classical beauty she was. Lady Azza, I guess this would be the test of love, Zuke said, looking at Zixai, a fairy, curiously. At this time, Zixai, a fairy, hadn't lost all her memories yet. She shook her head seriously. Everything was possible in the illusionary realm. She didn't know what would happen next. She only hoped this kind young man could survive this test. Wait, Zhaoan, Zhao Xiang. Why do you hold each other's hands? The cute girl, who had stopped in front of them, noticed they were holding each other's hands. Patter. The old-style kite in her hand fell to the ground. The smile on her face was also frozen slowly. Squeak. At the same time, a door, which was not far away, was opened. A strongly built middle-aged man stepped out and saw the three of them. Then, the middle-aged man furrowed his eyebrows tightly. Chapter 751. I am going to break this spell. As expected, it is absolutely the same as before. Look at that monarch. He has noticed the expression of that young princess. Then, he will step over and scold them. However, several days later, he is going to betroth the servant girl to the page boy to make the young princess give up her love. Actually, this is quite normal. How could a princess be with a humble page boy? All at once, the cultivators standing on the wall of the secret room started to talk about this. It was just like a group of people talking about the plot when they were watching a melodramatic soap opera. At the same time, in the illusionary realm, Zuke and Zixai, a fairy, were also surprised. After all, they didn't know what had happened in this illusionary realm before. When they saw this lovely girl's disappointed look, they were confused. Ahem! Suddenly, they heard a sonorous coughing sound. Zuke and Zixai, a fairy, turned to the source of the sound and found a majestic middle-aged man was walking toward them slowly. Daddy! The lovely girl said hurriedly, as she lowered her head. The middle-aged man nodded his head slightly. Then, he glanced at Zuke and Zixai, a fairy, and he frowned. The lovely girl winked and made signs to Zuke and Zixai, a fairy, and said anxiously, Zhaoan, Zhao Xiang, you should greet my daddy now. Ah. Zuke was shocked. Then, he turned to the middle-aged man and said nervously, Daddy. Swish. It seemed the air around them was frozen, and the entire area was in a blank silence. The lovely girl was dumbfounded. The middle-aged man was stunned. Even Zixai, a fairy, was shocked. What? Zuke asked with puzzlement. We are humble servants here, and we should address this man as monarch. This girl is the princess here. Zixia Fairy reminded Zuke in a low voice. These were the memories newly added to her mind after her arrival in this realm. Zuke didn't know any of these, for he had activated the memory protection function, which could protect his memory and prevent the infiltration of fake memories. But Zuke was smart enough to realize he had made a mistake. Hearing Zixia Fairy's reminder, he stepped out and said, bowing sincerely, "Monarch, please forgive my mistake. Actually, I think of you as a great father. Therefore, I couldn't help but utter my thoughts when I saw your majestic appearance." "It's okay." The middle-aged man calmed down after hearing his explanation. Then he said indifferently, "Since you said that out of kindness, I'll forgive you. But it shall not be taken as a precedent. A page boy should always act like a page boy. You should always remember your position here." "Crap." Zuke was annoyed immediately. "I called you daddy by accident, which should be an honor to you. How dare you disrespect me like that?" "What do you mean by saying a page boy should always act like a page boy? I am the handsome and graceful king of tough acting. How could I be a mediocre page boy?" Just at this moment, the middle-aged man's face darkened suddenly, and he asked, staring at Zuke, "Am I clear, Huan?" "Stop your What? Wait, what did you call me just now?" Zuke was about to answer him, but he was shocked when the middle-aged man called his name. "Huan? Damn, isn't his the code name of Tang Bao, when he pretended to be a family servant? Does this mean I am Tang Bao here?" Zuke was enlightened. He didn't figure it out when the young princes called him Zhaoan and called Zixia Fairy Zhao Xiang just now. However, when the middle-aged man called him Huan, he figured it out immediately. "I am Huan. Does this mean Zixia Fairy is Caillou Xiang?" He couldn't believe that and started to look around. They were in a lavishly decorated antique monarch's mansion. Moreover, everyone here were ordinary people without any cultivation achievements, including himself. However, there was something that was different with the story of Tang Bao that he knew about. For example, in the movie Flirting Scholar, Tang Bao came to the family of the Grand Tutor Hua and married Caillou Xiang, who was one of the servant girls of the Hua family. But now he was a page boy in a monarch's mansion. This must be a coincidence. Zuke felt quite embarrassed himself. However, his words and reaction aroused suspicion from the little princess and the monarch. Zixia Fairy was also looking at him with a curious expression. "Joker, what are you doing? Haven't you got some new memories yet? Your name here is Huan, and you are a page boy." "My name is Ming Xiang, and I am a servant girl." Zixia Fairy reminded Zuke again in a low voice. Zuke finally realized it was really a coincidence. "Huan, are you going to defy my order?" The monarch was totally annoyed and started to stare at Zuke angrily. Seeing that, the young princess shouted hurriedly, "Daddy, Hua and doesn't mean that. He spent the whole night finding the materials to make a kite for me. He must be too exhausted to remember the etiquette." After saying that, she shouted at Zuke anxiously, "Huan, you should kneel down and ask for forgiveness from my daddy." "Ask for forgiveness? That will never happen." Zuke sneered in his heart and was about to act overbearingly tough. However, the monarch said suddenly, "I am going to meet the emperor and don't want to waste my time with you." "Guards, lock Hua and in the woodshed." After saying that, he stormed out angrily. At the same time, the cultivators on the wall of the secret room were watching the scene calmly as if they had already known the plot would develop in this way. Like before, they still had some memories. The man offended the monarch, so he was locked in the woodshed. Luckily, the young princess was smart. She acted coquettishly in front of her father to beg him to release him later. But they were trapped in trouble after that. After setting him free, the monarch betrothed the servant girl to him. The young princess cried miserably, which was even heartbreaking for me. "Nonsense, it is just an illusionary image." Alas, that's why the illusionary realm is horrible. Even an outsider was trapped in its plot, let alone those insiders. "What? Wait, look at that guy. What is he going to do?" While the onlookers were talking about the scene, someone exclaimed as he pointed at the image. The rest of the people looked up and were completely dumbfounded by the scene. They found Zuke was talking tough in front of 4 family servants who were trying to lock him in the woodshed. "Let me tell you the 2 most hated things in my life. First, Someone points a gun at my head. Second, someone tries to lock me in a woodshed. Don't do anything stupid, or I will demolish this monarch's mansion. Zhu Kei's overbearing words came in from the image, which dumbfounded the onlookers. My god, is he insane? I guess he still thinks he is a cultivator in the illusionary realm. He is just an ordinary person in the illusionary realm. What makes him so bold? I'm afraid he will be beaten up. The onlookers shook their heads. At this time, in the monarch's mansion in the illusionary realm, Zixi Aferi, the young princess, and the 4 family servants were totally shocked by Zhu Kei's words. For Zixi Aferi and the young princess, Zhu Kei was not a person like that, no matter if he was the Joker or Huan. Joker, what are you doing? Zhaoan, are you okay? Zixi Aferi and the young princess asked with puzzlement almost at the same time. Zhu Kei ignored the young princess. He walked to Zixi Aferi and said in a low voice to her, Lady Azza, I have a method to break this spell. So, please trust me no matter what I am going to do next, okay? He has a method to break this spell? Hearing that, Zixi Aferi was totally shocked. It was quite difficult for her to believe a young man at the Golden Core stage could break this powerful spell. However, when she recalled Zhu Kei broke the chessboard C spell before this, she didn't hesitate anymore. So, she nodded immediately and said, okay, I trust you, Joker. Just do whatever you want to do, okay? Zhu Kei said with a smile. Then, he fixed his eyes on the 4 family servants. The next moment, he waved his hand to take out a black cylinder. It was a modern weapon. Several black muzzles were pointing at the family servants. Guys, now it is the time for blunder. All men stand on the left and women on the right. Then, you should squat down and put your hands behind your heads, or you will taste the lethal power of my Gatling gun. Hey, you. Why are you still motionless? Haven't you seen a Gatling gun before? It is featured with rapid fire and blue muzzle flash. Chapter 752, Just Fight by Undervaluing Life and Death. Swish. At this time, the secret room in the mysterious abode was in dead silence. All the cultivators there were dumbfounded. A plunder? Is this guy going to plunder the mansion of the monarch? Holy crap, this is so familiar. Yes, they are so alike. Exactly. They are really very alike. What are you talking about, buddy? Haven't you heard of Zhu Kei of the Exploding Heavens faction? This guy is really like Zhu Kei. Holy shit. Now that you reminded me. Yes, we are saved. My fellow cultivators, we are saved. If this guy is a sovereign of the Exploding Heavens faction, none of us will die here. Wait, that won't work either. Even if he is a sovereign of the Exploding Heavens faction, he is still an ordinary person in the illusionary realm, which means he can change nothing. Someone said suddenly. His words depressed the rest of the people, as if he had poured cold water on their heads. All the cultivators calmed down and became serious again. Right, a sovereign of the Exploding Heavens faction, even Zhu Kei, can do nothing in such an illusionary realm. After all, nobody could continue to cultivate after becoming an ordinary person in the illusionary realm. Moreover, if someone tried to cultivate in the illusionary realm, he failed. The illusionary realm was predefined as a world where nobody could perform cultivation. Therefore, in such a circumstance, personal capabilities were not important at all. The power and influence of a person were the most important factors. In addition, the most important point was that even if one had power, once he failed to pass the test of the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures, the illusionary realm was still able to eradicate him. For example, if a cultivator became an emperor in the illusionary realm, he could still die in the palace miserably after being attacked by the rebels. Alas, after pondering it calmly, I guess we are doomed. Right. The sovereigns of the Exploding Heavens faction are always arrogant because of their extraordinary talents. However, the arrogant guys will always die first in the illusionary realm. Forget it. Let's continue to think about other solutions. After saying that, the cultivators' faces were filled with despair and disappointment. At the same time, in the illusionary realm, Zhu Kei still pointed his gun at the 4 family servants. They were in a stalemate. and none of them moved. The young princess was the one who was most surprised. She opened her mouth and her lovely eyes were full of terror. She couldn't believe Brother Hua, and who was always nice and kind, could act in such a roguish way and even threaten to plunder the mansion of the monarch. Zhaoan, what is wrong with you? The young princess said, stomping her little feet. Her voice was full of surprise and anger. Apparently, she was so anxious that she was about to cry. If he offended her father, she could still ensure his safety. However, as a page boy, who threatened to plunder the mansion of the monarch, he could be charged with a felony conviction. He could be imprisoned or even beheaded because of that. Nothing is wrong with me. This is me, a maverick and handsome young man, Zhu Ke said. Then he pointed his gun at the young princess and said, Princess, please do as I say. Now is the time to plunder, please treat it seriously. You pick up the kite on the ground and hand it to me. Are you also going to rob my kite? The young princess was dumbfounded, and her face was full of disbelief. Zhu Ke blinked his eyes and smiled. Right. The plunder rule of our Exploding Heavens faction is to rob everything except a single needle or a piece of thread. You. The young princess was so anxious she didn't even know what to say. After a while, she managed to utter some words. You are not Brother Huan. You are definitely not Brother Huan. Exactly. I am not Huan. I am Joker of the Exploding Heavens faction. Zhu Ke replied with a smile. He had kept all his memories, but didn't have any memories in this illusionary realm. He knew nothing about this young princess. Therefore, he could bully her mercilessly. Moreover, he was quite clear that no matter how lovely the young princess was, she was just an illusionary image. The most urgent thing was to stay alive. He couldn't be soft-hearted, otherwise, he would be trapped in this illusionary realm and die of old age, which was something he would never accept. Huan has lost his mind. Stop wasting time on him. We can't be scared away by the iron rod in his hand. Let's take him to the woodshed. Damn, I didn't like him from the very beginning. How dare he say he will plunder the mansion of the monarch? Let's teach him a good lesson later. At this time, the four family servants snorted as they dashed towards Zhu Ke, ignoring the Gatling gun in his hand. Although this was a world of ordinary persons, the family servants in a mansion of the monarch also know some fighting skills. One of them waved his hand towards Zhu Ke with a sound of wind. His hand was just like a talon. Apparently, it was an eagle claw attack. Another family servant punched his fist at Zhu Ke's face directly. Obviously, he was trying to knock Zhu Ke unconscious directly. Impressive. You are not afraid of my Gatling gun? Zhu Ke sneered as he waved the Gatling gun in his hand abruptly. Bang, bang, bang. The family servants' attacks were blocked by the Gatling gun, which also drove them a few steps backwards. However, their strength couldn't be ignored. Zhu Ke moaned a bit as he stumbled back and almost fell. Damn. Zhu Ke was annoyed immediately. After entering this illusionary realm, he had lost all his cultivation achievements. His body was quite vulnerable, which meant he had become an ordinary person. After being knocked back by those family servants, he felt pain in his chest and spat blood directly. Ha ha, you are just a page boy. How dare you challenge us? This is so ridiculous. Just surrender. At least the monarch will give you a quick death. In the mansion of the monarch, the best death for those who make mistakes is to be clubbed to death. If you surrender now, we will give you a heavy blow later, so that you could die quickly and avoid unnecessary torture. The family servants sneered, for a page boy was nothing to them. However, at this time, the young princess rushed up and stood between Zhu Ke and those family servants. Stop, I won't allow you to beat Huan. She pursed up her lips and shouted at those family servants angrily. Without any hesitation, she stepped out to defend Zhu Ke even though he had just bullied her and even though he was no longer the one she was familiar with. The family servants frowned and said perplexedly, Princess, this is the order of the monarch. Please don't give us a hard time. I don't care. You didn't hear the words said by Hua and just now. If you disclose any of them, I will make you regret it. The young princess stared at and threatened those family servants, but she looked really cute. Even so, the family servants stood looking at each other. They knew clearly how the young princess liked Huan. Therefore, They were intimidated by the young princess's words at this moment. Zuke raised his eyebrows. Now, he had also figured out that the young princess liked him, who was only a page boy, very much. However, he shook his head slightly and exclaimed in his heart, "It is just an illusionary realm. Everything here is unreal." Hey, princess, you are really acting very mischievously this time." A sarcastic voice came from the rear part of the courtyard suddenly. An old man was walking slowly toward them with a group of family servants. "Butler Wang, what brings you here?" The young princess turned pale after seeing their arrival. Although she was a princess, her father trusted this old butler more than anyone. If he was involved in this issue, Huan would really be a dead man. On his arrival, the old man stared at Zuke, and said with a cold smile, "Young princess, Huan just said he will plunder the mansion of the monarch, which I've heard clearly. This will have his entire clan executed. We have to report this to the monarch." "No, Butler Wang, you can't do that." The young princess was very anxious and started to cry. Her eyes were wet and red. The old man ignored her words and said to Zuke, "Take down this rebellious page boy, club him 100 times and throw him into the woodshed to wait for the punishment decided by the monarch." "Yes, sir." More than 10 family servants behind him replied at the same time. Then, they rushed toward Zuke, grabbing clubs in their hands. "Humphrey, a bunch of ants." Zuke sneered as he placed the Gatling gun on his leg. Then, he shouted, "Lady Azza, young princess, just stay behind me." Zixia Fairy was confused by his words, but she still hid herself behind Zuke, also dragging the young princess. Zuke looked at Butler Wang with a smile. Then, he said, curling his finger, "Come on, Butler Wang, let me show you the power of the Gatling gun." "Mind your words, Huan. Are you really going to rise in rebellion today?" "Humphrey, why are you still motionless?" "Club him to death with no mercy." Butler Wang scolded angrily. Hey. Zuke smiled and he shook his head. Then, he sat on the stone chair in the middle of the courtyard. He grabbed the Gatling gun with one hand and picked his ear with the other hand as he said disdainfully, "As I said, I am not Huan. I am Joker of the Exploding Heavens faction. If you want to kill me, please be my guest." All members of the Exploding Heavens faction are tough guys who just fight by undervaluing life and death. "Today I will kill you or I will be killed by you." Chapter 753. Who am I? Where am I? Hearing this, all the cultivators in the mysterious cave were speechless. He said, "I want to kill all of you or be killed by you." He is really very courageous. Indeed. Everyone from the Exploding Heavens faction is really tough. I do admire them. So do I. Me too. Zuke's words had greatly surprised them. After all, in front of all the servants, an ordinary person like Zuke being so arrogant and reckless could definitely have gotten him killed. Anyway, I think he's going to be killed. You are right. Look at him. He's got only a peculiar iron stick. How can he defeat the servants who are so good at kung fu? I think he would definitely be killed by them. I never thought people from the Exploding Heavens faction could be so courageous. Even under these circumstances, he does not flee, but confronts them. I only want to say I am really impressed. Good for you. At the same time, Zuke was being surrounded by many servants. Seeing this, Zixia Fairy was getting very nervous. She stood behind Zuke and stared at him, full of complex feelings. I don't know why Joker has been a bit different. He is no longer the gentle and positive young man I knew before. Instead, he is getting more and more like that rogue Zuke. More important, he has lost all his cultivation and is just an ordinary person. How can he defeat all these servants with only a iron stick in his hands? This is tantamount to suicide. Thinking this, Zixia Fairy sighed. Stop. Back off now, otherwise I will tell my father that you have all bullied me. The young princess was so anxious that she was about to cry. She knew clearly that these servants were all very good at kung fu. As for her brother, Huan, he was just a student and knew nothing about kung fu. With only some knowledge about literature, he could not possibly defeat these servants. How dare you? You are just a student. How dare you be so bold and try to loot the mansion and kidnap the young princess? As the butler, It is my responsibility to keep the mansion safe. Hurry up and rescue our princess from him. As for Huan, just beat him to death." Butler Wang gave the order. Hearing this, all the servants became bolder and were not afraid of the young princess's threat. The next minute, they all rushed forward. "Rescue our princess, and kill Huan. Let's go." More than 10 servants rushed forward, holding iron sticks in their hands. Seeing this, Zhu Ke shook his head and laughed at them. "With your sticks, you can kill a chicken maybe. You think you can kill me? Come, let me show you how powerful my Gatling gun is." Then he held high his Gatling gun, put it against his thigh, and began to shoot. Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, countless bullets flew out and the bullet shells fell onto the ground. In the blink of an eye, all those ferocious servants collapsed on the ground. Zhu Ke shouted aloud, "Come, shout together with the rhythm." Bang, 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 bang. Zhu Ke was still shooting, and blue sparks of fire appeared at one end of the gun. "See? The fire is blue. Did you see?" Zhu Ke exclaimed. Seeing this, everyone present was shocked. More than 10 servants were dead, with only 2 left standing. They were so terrified that their legs began to shake. Even Butler Wang was shocked and was standing still like a frightened chick. "What the hell is this? Blue fire? It can kill a person like this? This is impossible. How can there be such a thing in this world? This is a weapon of the devil. I am sure about that. Run. Everyone run." The 2 surviving servants ran away, screaming. Butler Wang also wanted to run, but he was too old to run quickly. As soon as he turned around and was about to run, his legs could no longer support him and he just collapsed onto the ground. "Ah!" Butler Wang screamed in great pain, since his head bumped into the garden's fences, which were made of stones, and his head ran with blood. Seeing this, both Zixia Fairy and the young princess were shocked. They never thought the peculiar iron stick in Zhu Ke's hand could be this powerful. In just a few seconds, Zhu Ke killed most of the servants and got out of danger. Brother Huan. The young princess opened her little mouth and looked at Zhu Ke with great surprise, her eyes wide open. "Is he really the brother Huan I know? Why did he become so powerful all of a sudden?" "Butler Wang, what have you got so say?" Zhu Ke walked toward Butler Wang and stopped in front of him, with his Gatling gun on his shoulder. Butler Wang was so terrified that he hurriedly shouted, "Brother, please, please spare me. Call me Brother Bao, not Brother Brother Bao. Master Bao, I know you are a very generous man. Please let me go and don't kill me. I was so foolish before to treat you so badly. I should not have offended you." Butler Wang knelt down in front of Zhu Ke and begged his forgiveness, with blood covering his entire face. Zhu Ke looked at him and sighed. "Why did you do all those horrible things to me then? We are all human and made from flesh and blood. I can't understand why you all have to fight against each other. I am always a nice man, and it is you who have pushed me to do this." "Brother Bao, you are totally right. I should not have pushed you." Butler Wang cried out. "Never mind, you can go now. I don't want to kill anyone," Zhu Ke said, shaking his head. Thank you. Butler Wang quickly ran away. Zhu Ke did not run after him. Instead, he stood still and watched Butler Wang getting farther and farther away. In the past, Zhu Ke would never have let anyone who hated him go, but this time, since he was in the Wonderland and could ask help from the system whenever he wanted, all the people around him were just illusions and could not pose any threat to him. Besides, with Zixia Fairy present, Zhu Ke did not want to act too cruelly, in case Zixia Fairy would think ill of him. "Joker, you!" At this moment, Zixia Fairy strode forward and looked at Zhu Ke with a complex facial expression. In fact, she had got lots of questions to ask. She simply did not know where to start. If he is just an ordinary person, where on earth does he get this sort of weapon from? I didn't even see him taking it out of the storage ring. Why has he suddenly turned into a totally different person and become so rebellious? Why can he kill someone without even blinking an eye? Ah, Zixia. Suddenly, Zhu Ke's face was full of terror and became as pale as a sheet. Bang! He threw the Gatling gun onto the ground and shouted, What has happened? Who am I? Where am I? Who put the Gatling gun into my hands? Who killed these people? What on earth has happened? What happened with you? Zixia Fairy was shocked by Zukei's sudden change. Zukei put his two hands on his head and said with pain, "It's me. It's me who have killed these people. Why would this happen to me? It is because of the array. I have no idea where I got the Gatling gun. I am not a cold-blooded killer." Then, he looked into the sky and began to laugh as if he had gone mad. "You damn array of 7 emotions and 6 desires. You think you can turn me into a killer like this? You are wrong. I have always been a decent and dignified man and would never be controlled by you and would definitely not become a killing machine." Then, he lowered his head and began to look at the fences made of stone. Suddenly, his face became quite determined, and he began to run toward them, as if he wanted to kill himself by knocking into the fences. Chapter 754, Let's Run Away. "Joker, please don't!" Zixia Fairy exclaimed. She was terrified that Zukei was going to kill himself and hurriedly stopped him with her own hands. Zukei put on an extremely miserable face and tried to get Zixia Fairy's hands off him. "Zixia, please let me go. The array of 7 emotions and 6 desires has turned me into a cruel killer. I can't let it change me into the way it wants me to become." "No, that is what the array of 7 emotions and 6 desires wants you to do," Zixia Fairy said, while holding Zukei tightly, in case he would run into the fence. "Let me go, just let me go." Zukei put his head on her breast and cried out, "The array of 7 emotions and 6 desires is really wicked. It made me kill so many people. What is the point of living? I can't allow my reputation to be tarnished, even if I would have to kill myself to achieve that." "Joker, I know how you feel, but please calm down first. Those people you have killed are just illusions, they are not real." Zixia Fairy looked at him and began to comfort him as if he was her child. Outside the mysterious secret chamber, the cultivators were shocked by what they were seeing. How shameless this young man is. Is this really happening? You know what? We all know that this array is used to test the love between a couple. You said it is an array that can turn someone into a cruel killer? As for the Gatling gun, you took it out yourself. Everyone was speechless, since they never thought Zukei had such a destructive weapon with him all this time. After he killed those people, he pretended that he had been controlled and turned into a cold-blooded killer by the array, and Zixia Fairy bought it. I don't know, I kind of admire him. People from the Exploding Heavens faction are quite something. He is such a good performer. I don't think anyone is as good as him in this regard. No wonder the Exploding Heavens faction has been so mysterious all this time. Whenever a member of the Exploding Heavens faction reveals himself, he would definitely cause trouble. The cultivators all forced out a smile. After being comforted, Zukei gradually calmed down. He picked up the Gatling gun and said with a serious face, "Zixia, you are right, this array is testing me. It knows that I am a kind man and knows I don't dare to kill people. It wants me to die of guilt. I can't allow this to happen." "Yes, so you don't need to feel guilty. Everything around us is not real." Zixia Fairy nodded and was relieved. "But Zixia, what should we do now?" Zukei nodded and asked her. Hearing this, Zixia Fairy was a bit surprised. "What should we do?" "You asked me what should we do? Earlier, before you killed them, you said you already knew how to get us out of here. Then you told me that you have no idea. How on earth can I know what we should do next?" Zukei sighed and said, "Never mind, I think we should leave here first, and then we can figure out what we should do." Zixia Fairy nodded and agreed. "Wait, Brother Huan, Sister Caillou Xiang, where are we going? Can I go with you?" Suddenly, the young princess ran forward and entreated them. "What? You want to come with us?" Zukei felt that this was quite unexpected. The young princess said, "I want to go with you. I no longer want to stay here." "You can't come with us. We are going somewhere dangerous. I am not even sure that we will have 3 meals a day." Zukei said, "I don't mind. I want to go with you." The young princess said, "Joker, it is okay, she can come with us." Zixia Fairy said. Hearing this, Zukei nodded. "Fine, then we should pack now and leave immediately." "Great. I am going to fetch my father's money," the young princess exclaimed, while running happily to the backyard. Seeing this, Zixia Fairy gently shook her head and forced out a bit of a smile. She is really an innocent girl. I never thought the array of 7 emotions and 6 desires was this powerful and able to make so many people lose themselves here. Zixia, don't worry, I will not forget you, Zhu Ke said with determination. We shall pack now. Zixia Fairy smiled. She turned away and left to pack. Seeing her getting farther and farther away, Zhu Ke summoned the system and bought a parcel. He took out lots of stuff and pretended he was packing. Then he came up with a wicked idea and strode to the backyard. Soon, the 3 of them had gathered together in the backyard, each with a parcel on their backs. Everyone from the mansion was terrified. Some went to the government office to ask for help. Some went to the royal palace to send a message to the Lord. No one dared to come forward to stop Zhu Ke from leaving. Great, let's go to conquer. No, 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 let's run away. With the Gatling gun on his back, Zhu Ke waved and left the mansion with Zixia Fairy and a young princess. Suddenly, inside the mysterious secret chamber, the cultivators could not see Zhu Ke, Zixia Fairy, and the young princess. What's going on? Why have they suddenly disappeared? Wait. This is. The cultivators began to stare at the illusion again. The middle-aged lord hurriedly returned, together with tens of thousands of soldiers and war horses. Butler Wang rushed out, with a blood-stained bandage around his head. He cried out and began to tell what had transpired. I already know what has happened. Even the emperor knows about this. Now, the emperor has sent an army and the entire palace and the city have been blocked. It is impossible for Huan to run away. After I catch him, I will torture him, the lord said with a rather frightening tone. My lord. Butler Wang walked up close to the lord in a cowardly manner and took out a letter and handed it to him. My lord, Huan left this letter for you before he left and wanted me to hand it to you myself, Butler Wang said in a low voice. Before Zhu Ke took his departure, he went to see Butler Wang. Butler Wang was terribly frightened of him at that time. Zhu Ke directly left after he handed the letter to Butler Wang. As for the content, Butler Wang did not dare to find out, since Zhu Ke had warned him that the more he knew, the more danger he could be in. How dare he? He must have written something to threaten me. The lord sneered and opened the letter. While he was reading it, his face gradually turned very gloomy. The next moment, he shouted aloud, how dare he? I never thought he is. Chapter 755, Zhu Ke in women's clothes. My lord, what has happened? Butler Wang was shocked by the lord's sudden burst of anger. The lord did not respond. His pupils shrank back to normal, and he calmed down. Then he shouted again, how dare he? He crumpled up the letter and strode to the mansion. The lord was back in his study, where he put the crumpled letter on the table and started breathing like a beast. After all, anyone who read the letter would be angered. My dear lord, I am Huan. And you can also call me Joker. I have knocked your daughter up, so I think I have to keep her by my side. Sorry to take her away from you. I understand that as a father all you want for your daughter is that she can find a good husband, and, in this way, your grandchildren would also have a bright future. So, I have decided to take the throne and become the new emperor. I am heading to the palace, together with your daughter. Please send your soldiers to back me up. It's urgent. Bang. His fist smashed into the desk. The lord was infuriated. My daughter is a princess. You are just a damn poor student and get my precious daughter pregnant. If this news spreads, my family will become a laughingstock for eternity. You killed my servants and dare to say that you want to usurp the emperor. How dare you? How dare you? The lord was too angry to speak. He wanted to kill Zhu Ke very much, but he also had no idea what to do. After all, he had no idea where Zhu Ke was at this moment. When he thought of his precious daughter being taken away by Zhu Ke, he hated himself for not killing Zhu Ke in the very first place. Right at this moment, The cultivators in the mysterious secret chamber were speechless. They have also seen the content of the letter and were deeply surprised by Zuke. That Joker is really shameless. He even lied to the Lord that he has got the young princess pregnant. Look at the Lord. He is so angry that his face has turned red. Zuke even said that he wants to kill the Emperor and become the new Emperor. I think he might really be able to kill the Emperor. Have you seen the gun he just used? The Gatling gun? The gun with blue fire. Gatling. Yes, Gatling gun. With that gun, I think no ordinary people could kill him. I don't think so. Just as the saying goes, a man with 2 fists could not beat 2 men with 4 hands. The Emperor has got 10 of thousands of soldiers and war horses, but he could not win. Wait a minute. I think the most important thing is that we have to figure out where does he get the Gatling gun? Once a cultivator gets into the secret chamber, he would become an ordinary, which means that he could use the storage ring. Can it be possible that he has been hiding the gun on the place where his genitals are? My goodness, he must have an enormous penis. The cultivators were busy discussing all this with each other. At the same time, something changed in the world of the illusion. In the palace, Zuke, Zixai a fairy, and the young princess had sneaked into the palace. Just like Zuke had said, they were running away. According to the theory of the Exploding Heavens faction, the most dangerous place was actually the safest place. That was why Zuke had decided to sneak into the palace. Zuke bought a drone from the market of the system. After examining carefully the entire palace, he had managed to find a safe spot. He easily jumped up and landed on the other side of the palace wall and got Zixai a fairy and the young princess to the other side too. However, when they got near the palace, he found it was heavily guarded. After all, Zuke was just an ordinary here, so, no matter how clever he was, he could still be spotted by the guards. Stop there, who you are? Someone shouted loudly while Zuke was trying to sneak away. Then a few soldiers jumped out from the darkness and surrounded the 3. Good evening, men. I am Joker and come from the Water Nation, Zuke said politely. Water Nation? I have never heard of that before. Sergeant, come and arrest these 3. The head of the guards frowned and said harshly. Hearing this, the sergeant and some of his men got nearer to the 3 and put long knives against Zuke's, Zixai a fairy's, and the young princess's necks. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, the soldiers fell to the ground. Ah! Zuke once more exclaimed. Who put this damn thing into my hands? Zixai, I killed people. Again? He raised his head up, looked at the sky, and shouted, it must be the damn array of 7 emotions and 6 desires. Why you are doing this to me? Please stop. I really don't want to kill people anymore. Joker. Zixai a fairy held his arm and comforted him. It's fine. This is not real. Zuke sighed and shook his head. I know it is not real, but it feels so real. In fact, when I was a child, whenever I saw blood, I would faint. After I joined the Exploding Heavens faction, this symptom got much better, but since then, I am still afraid of blood, and do not dare to kill people. I never thought this would become my weakness. The damn array of 7 emotions and 6 desires knows this, and has been taking advantage of me. Don't worry, as long as you are still sane, don't be devoured by the guilt. You will pass the test, thanks to you, otherwise, we would be the ones to be killed. Zixai comforted him gently. Hearing this, Zuke calmed down at last and nodded. He pretended he was reluctant to pick up the gun and cleared the spot. Then he threw the dead bodies into a well nearby. Seeing this, the cultivators in the secret chamber were all stunned. He is really shameless. He killed the people himself and he blamed this on the array? He made all this up. Meanwhile, the 3 began to head to a mansion that was supposed to be the royalty's bedrooms. To Zuke's surprise, the young princess was not afraid at all. Instead, she was very excited all the way. After all, it was the first time for her to have this sort of adventure. After a short while, they managed to sneak into a bedroom. They found some clothes there and were about to put them on, but they did not find any clothes that were suitable to a man. Zuke could have gotten some from the market, but he was afraid that Zixia Fairy might get suspicious. He had no way out but to put on extravagant female clothes and some beautiful accessories. "Brother Huan, you look so stunning." The young princess looked at Zhu Ke and laughed, with her hands covering her mouth. Although Zhu Ke was a man, he still looked very handsome, or even beautiful, with the female clothes on. When Zixia Fairy saw him, she also laughed. "Brother Huan, stand still, I am going to help you to put on some makeup." The young princess got very excited and was about to put some rouge on him from a box in her hand. "No need for this." Zhu Ke hurriedly backed off. "Me, wearing makeup? I am a man." "Please, Brother Huan, just a little bit, please." The young princess still insisted and ran toward Zhu Ke. "Stop it, if you do it, I would really get you preg." Suddenly, someone opened the door. The three were startled, and it was too late for them to hide. An extremely beautiful and elegant woman was standing in the doorway and staring at them. She was a bit surprised, and asked coldly, "Who are you? How dare you sneak into my bedroom?" Zhu Ke was stunned for only seconds, but he soon took out a handkerchief, moved his waist sexily, and said in a high-pitched voice, "How dare you be so rude to me?" Zixia Fairy and the young princess were surprised. Zhu Ke said to the woman proudly, "Since I came to the palace, I have always been the favorite of His Majesty. There were 3,000 beauties here in the palace, but His Majesty only loved me. I have asked His Majesty to love everyone equally, but he refuses to do so. He said he wants nobody but me. I have been so kind. Tell me why I can't come to your Pure Heart Palace." Chapter 756. Zhu Ke's identity is accidentally revealed. There was complete silence in the secret chamber. Hearing what Zhu Ke had said, all the cultivators were shocked. "It is already quite peculiar that you are wearing women's clothes, and now you think yourself an actor? Since you have come to the palace, among the 3,000 beautiful concubines there, you have always been the emperor's favorite. You said you have asked the emperor to love all his concubines equally. This is really ludicrous." Zixia Fairy and the young princess were also shocked by Zhu Ke's actions and words. The stunning woman who was standing just outside the door frowned and said in a deep voice, "You are one of His Majesty's concubines?" "Nonsense. If you are, why have we, royal we, never laid eyes on you before?" "Royal we? My goodness, she is the Dowager Countess?" Zhu Ke was shocked and was about to take out his gun to kill the Dowager Countess. At that moment, the stunning woman shook her head and said, "Never mind, I don't have the time or the energy to deal with you now." "She just let me go like this?" Zhu Ke was a bit surprised. "I don't mind killing one or two more people, but, after all, she is the Dowager Countess. I should not kill her now. What if I can't find the chance to kill the Emperor? Then if I kill her now, the Emperor would definitely send troops to kill me." "Thank you so much," Zhu Ke said and looked at Zixia Fairy and the young princess, implying that they should leave. The young princess was feeling a bit awkward and was about to say something, but when she realized that Zhu Ke wanted her to leave, she couldn't do anything but follow Zixia Fairy out of the bedroom. Suddenly, the Dowager Countess said, pointing at Zhu Ke, "Wait, you stay here." Zhu Ke was stunned. "I am sorry, it is a bit late now. I think it's time for you to go to sleep. Royal Me has something to ask you. Close the door and come here." The Dowager Countess's tone sounded very serious. Zhu Ke hesitated for a while and suppressed his urge to kill the Dowager Countess. He looked at Zixia Fairy and the young princess, implying to them to wait outside. Then he closed the door and waited to find out what the Dowager Countess intended to do. The Dowager Countess asked, "Tell me, why have you kidnapped the young princess and then sneaked into the palace?" Zhu Ke was a bit shocked and hurriedly turned around. The Dowager Countess was holding a knife in her hand and standing right in front of him. Crap, she is indeed a tough figure. As soon as I drop my guard, she immediately takes action. Zhu Ke was so surprised that he was staring with wide eyes and open mouth. The young princess would come to the palace from time to time, so of course I know what she looks like. This morning, I heard that she was kidnapped by a student, and you are already a wanted man now. You think I can't see you through that woman's outfit?" The Dowager Countess said slowly and calmly and kept her eyes on Zhu Ke. Hearing this, Zuke smiled and shrugged. You do impress me. But you really think you can threaten me with a knife? Royal Me knows you are very good at kung fu. Otherwise you would not have been able to kidnap the young princess. You know what? I also have been learning kung fu since I was a child. You will see if I can kill you with a knife or not. The Dowager Countess said calmly. Oh, really? A Dowager Countess who knows about kung fu? This is really interesting. Zuke shook his head and said, well, since we have something in common, then I think we should not fight against each other. I come to the palace without any bad intentions. I simply want to find a place to hide. Find a place to hide? I can see you have indeed picked a good place. The Dowager Countess sneered. Zuke shook his head and slowly took out his gun equipped with a silencer. Then he shot at a chair next to the Dowager Countess. Bang! The bullet hit the leg of the chair and, in the blink of an eye, the chair collapsed. Seeing this, the Dowager Countess was shocked. Even if she could do kung fu and was not afraid of Zuke at all, when she saw the devastating power of the gun herself, she was greatly astonished. If I can have this weapon, no other countries would dare to invade us in the future. With this weapon, I can even invade other countries and enlarge my territory. Zuke gently blew on his gun and sat on a chair and pointed the gun at the Dowager Countess. Tell me, which do you think is faster, your dagger or my gun? You call it a gun? The Dowager Countess forced herself to calm down. Zuke did not answer and patted his thigh and smiled invitingly. Come and sit here, then I will tell you. Hearing this, the Dowager Countess's face turned gloomy and stared at the gun. A minute ago, she would have hesitated, but now she strode forward and sat right on Zuke's lap. However, Zuke was not a fool and knew she wanted to take his gun. He smiled and put the gun inside the gap between his belt and his clothes. This is really a bit inappropriate. I was just joking, and I am afraid I can't control myself with you sitting on my lap. Can't control yourself? What do you mean by this? The Dowager Countess pretended to be curious. At the same time, she put her slim hands on his chest and slowly moved downward. Well, you have to feel it with your heart. Words would only fail to convey its meaning. Zuke smiled. You think I am an idiot? I have seen this sort of thing millions of times in TV dramas. You think I would be fooled by you? You are too naive. Right, get down more. Right, get down more. So can you tell me who on earth you are? The Dowager Countess asked again, trying to distract Zuke. This was the question that had been troubling her. She could not find out why Zuke, a man who knew about kung fu and had such a powerful weapon, would be willing to degrade himself to be a student in the mansion. I am Joker. You can call me Jojo. Zuke smiled like a child. Jojo? The Dowager Countess was a bit disgusted and the corners of her mouth curled a bit. But her hands were still moving farther down, and soon her hands were on Zuke's stomach. All of a sudden, she made a move down and was about to grab the gun. Ah! Zuke exclaimed. You are really horny, aren't you? The Dowager Countess could feel her hands were holding something rather hot. When she looked down, she found the black gun had already gone and she was holding Zuke's penis. She hurriedly got up and backed off. She looked at Zuke with a furious face and was too angry to speak. How dare you? The Dowager Countess's face was totally red. What? You did the bad thing first, and you think I am the one on the wrong side? Zuke said and then sneered. I already knew you wanted to take my gun away. No matter how beautiful you are and no matter how much you try to seduce me, I am not attracted by you at all. You know what? I even haven't got a boner, and, to be honest, I find all this very funny. Hearing this, the Dowager Countess got even more angry. She had been sure that the thing she just held was the gun. It was something hard and enormous. Even the late emperors had not been this huge. You know what? You should at least think twice before you take any action. Zuke waved his hand, and the gun appeared again. You want to have this gun? If you want it, why don't you just tell me? How can I know you want it if you don't tell me? You really want it? Then take it. Wait, don't tell me you really want to take it. You really want to have it? Chapter 757. So happy. If a person could be killed by one's angry staring, Zuke would have been dead 1,000 times from the Dowager Countess's staring. The Dowager Countess, who was normally very calm, was about to burst due to extreme anger. All the cultivators who were in the secretive chamber were speechless. It was the first time in their lives that they had ever seen someone so shameless. No wonder he can become a member of the Exploding Heavens faction. He is almost as shameless as Zhu Ke. He is really a tough figure. This young man managed to get into the palace in less than one day. By the way, the Dowager Countess is really hot. She is not real. Even so, that young man can still have sex with her, and it might feel very awesome. While Zhu Ke, in fact, did not want to have sex with the Dowager Countess at all, since, after all, Zixia Fairy was standing just outside the door. Zhu Ke did indeed hunger after women all the time, but even he would not degrade himself to screw a woman who was not real. I think we should have a good chat about this. How about finding me decent clothes first? I am going to stay here for a day or two, if you don't mind. Then we have to talk about if I should give you the gun or not, Zhu Ke said while patting the Dowager Countess's shoulder. Stay here for a day or two? The Dowager Countess frowned and sneered. How dare you? You kidnapped the young princess and you want to stay here? What if the monarch Jin knows about all this? I don't care what he is going to think about this. Suddenly, Zhu Ke got rather serious and said in an angry tone, you just sat on my lap. What if the emperor knows about this? You even grabbed my penis? What if the late emperor knows about this? You. The Dowager Countess was so angry that she found her tongue was twisted. I sat on his lap simply to take his gun away and hand it to the blacksmith to check, so I can build a powerful army. It is you who tricked me and made me grab your thing. Thinking of this, the Dowager Countess got furious. Never mind, I know your bottom line. We are all adults and have seen quite a lot. Besides, I am immune to pretty women and am not interested in you at all. I only want to find a safe place to stay for a few days. A few days from now, I will give you the gun, and, if you treat me well, I can give you 10 or even 20 guns. Zhu Ke said happily. Hearing this, the Dowager Countess was silent. She was even a bit tempted by this idea. As the Dowager Countess, I definitely don't want the young princess kidnapped. But he promises that he would give me so many guns. With one gun, I can kill 10 people. Having tens of thousands of them would be tantamount to having an army of 100,000 soldiers. Besides, in the past, to prevent other countries invading us, the emperor of each dynasty had married his daughter to princes of other countries. So losing a young princess is not a big deal. You can stay here. The Dowager Countess nodded and stared at Zhu Ke with her beautiful eyes. But you have to give me a gun first, in case you break your word. Sure, you can have the gun, but not the bullets. Zhu Ke smiled while quickly taking out all the bullets. He threw the gun to the Dowager Countess, and she gently and easily caught the gun. She carefully examined the gun and nodded. You can stay here for a few days. I will make sure that no one will disturb you. But you'd better not walk around. If you are spotted by others, I can't keep you safe then. I like to work with decisive people like you. First, bring me some clothes. Not too fancy. A few pieces of plain Chinese imperial dragon robes will do, Zhu Ke said with a big smile. Hearing this, the Dowager Countess stopped. A few pieces of plain Chinese imperial dragon robes? Why not go and kill the emperor? She tried hard to suppress her anger and walked outside. As soon as the Dowager Countess walked away, Zixia Fairy and the young princess walked in and looked at Zhu Ke with great surprise. Brother Hua and I meant to tell you that the Dowager Countess knows me, but I did not get the chance. The young princess lowered her head, as if she had done something bad. Never mind, we can stay here for a few days. If you two like this place, we can stay here for a longer time. Zhu Ke smiled, since he had already known the Dowager Countess's intentions. As long as I can give her something she wants, she would do anything I ask her to do. After a while, the Dowager Countess came back with some clothes. The most ordinary guard's clothes. She put them down on the table and looked at the young princess. You can stay here for the next few days, but remember, don't walk around. Can you promise me? Yes, thank you. You have always been so kind to me." The young princess had no idea what had happened and only thought the Dowager Countess did all this to help her. The Dowager Countess nodded, coldly glanced at Zhu Kai, and walked away. In the next few days, the three lived peacefully in the palace, and no one came to disturb them. Every day, the Dowager Countess would bring meals to them herself, and Zhu Kai was very satisfied about this. One day, he stood alone in the yard and smiled. "I thought the illusion would be very dangerous. Great food, nice house, and, most important, the Dowager Countess looks after me as if she is a maid. It feels like I am having a holiday here. So happy." "Not dangerous? Holiday? So happy? Screw you. My goodness, I am so angry." In the past, anyone who walked into the illusion would suffer a great deal, but everything all changed. The illusion is supposed to make him suffer, and now he is in control. Kidnapping the young princess and flirting with the Dowager Countess who brings him 3 meals every day. I do envy him. I thought being trapped in the secretive chamber was much better than suffering in the illusion. Now even I want to get into the illusion and enjoy myself. Me too. If we get into the illusion and take the route he has walked, can it be possible that we might bump into him? I don't know. But if we meet him, we might be saved. By the time, we can also enjoy ourselves. Chapter 758. Just let me act tough already. People are always tempted whenever someone throws out a suggestion. After all, they wouldn't have gone anywhere if they had simply stayed put in the cave. If they could join Zhu Kai in the Mystery Land, under his protection, they needn't be afraid of anything. "No, we absolutely cannot go," exclaimed someone. "Have you guys forgotten? The illusion will gradually swallow our memories, before finally magnifying our emotions and desires. Wouldn't it be worse if we lost our memory and somehow became his enemy?" His words brought the crowd back to their senses. Then, all of them broke into a cold sweat. He was right. In the situation where they became Zhu Kai's enemies, they would be better off dead in some illusory realm. That guy is so scary, he could easily toy them to death without batting an eye. "Forget it, it's better not to go," said someone. Others were dallying and hesitating. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Look, the picture's flashing again." The cultivators looked up at the ceiling all at once, only to see the scene flash till it was white. When the white light disappeared moments later, the scene within the picture had already changed. It showed the illusory realms after a few months had passed. With his gun and hoodwinking techniques, Zhu Kai had somehow managed to live peacefully in the palace for several months, with Zixi a fairy and a young princess by his side. The Empress Dowager had almost accepted this. Being around Zhu Kai these few months had, slowly but surprisingly, changed her views on this shameless young man, to the point that she even developed some friendliness toward him. As he is one incredible young man, in these few short months, he has introduced a lot of new gizmos, such as that magical black mirror that she later learned was the television. Within the black mirror were a lot of little people, and you could watch and listen to what they were doing and saying. There was also a black box called a recorder that could emit many strange and beautiful songs. If you wanted it to, it could also record your singing. As soon as this thing appeared, Zixi a fairy, the young princess, and the Empress Dowager were fascinated. Whenever they had time, they would record their singing voices and then play it for themselves. Zhu Kai specially built a soundproof room in the chamber, setting up a karaoke room for the trio to sing to their heart's content. Life was so very crazy here, that at one point Zhu Kai thought that he had returned to Earth. If he weren't restricted in what he could do, he would almost have set up the internet and built a computer to play games. However, it turns out that you can't stop bad things from happening. The Empress Dowager was still the Empress Dowager. In these short months, although her views on Zhu Kai had changed and she had even developed some positive feelings about him, her mind was still with her son and country. She took Zhu Kai's gun to the palace blacksmiths and ordered them to study and recreate it. These blacksmiths lived up to their names. With the finished product in front of them, they finally succeeded in developing it after a few months. The only thing missing were the bullets. One day, the Empress Dowager met Zhu Kai and asked him for the bullets. After all, a few months ago, Zhu Kai said that he would give her the bullets if he could stay for a few days. Now that several months had passed, she felt that it was about time. "Are you sure that you want the bullets?" Zhu Kai asked with a smile. The Empress Dowager nodded. "Yes, don't worry. I will not burn the bridge after crossing it. You can stay in the palace as long as you like." "Aren't you afraid that the emergence of this thing will arouse the suspicion of the Lord, and, eventually, the Emperor?" Zhu Kai asked. The Empress Dowager shook her head and said, "I will assure your safety, even if the plan gets exposed." "Well, you said it." Zhu Kai laughed and threw the bullet to her without much hesitation. Once she got the bullet, she immediately left for the smelters and handed it to the blacksmiths. The main component of bullets is gunpowder. There were fireworks in this country, so gunpowder wasn't anything new. The blacksmiths entered into a state of frantic research once they had taken apart the bullet. Meanwhile, Zhu Kai continued to live a comfortable life. However, Zhu Kai was at his limit. Even though he knew that the decades he spent here were but an instant in the outside world, this sort of life was still too boring for him. Night fell, and the stars glistened. Zhu Kai and Zixi Fairy sat in the courtyard, counting the stars. "Miss Eza, how much longer do you reckon that we need to continue to stay here? When can we finally break out of this spell?" Zhu Kai sighed. So far, he had not found the key to break this illusion. "Huh?" Zixi Fairy suddenly turned around and looked at Zhu Kai with some confusion. "Spell? What spell?" Zhu Kai's heart dropped as soon as he heard this. What will come, will come. The system had protected his memory, but that was it. No one apart from him can use this functionality. Several months in, and Zixi Fairy had gradually lost her memories under the spell's influence. She had forgotten that she was a cultivator, and all about her past. She only knew herself as the servant girl Qixiang and her experiences with Zhu Kai here. After a moment's silence, Zhu Kai exhaled deeply and laughed. "It's alright. I was just wondering if you would like to leave the palace sometime. Let's go play." "Really?" Zixi Fairy got excited at once. "Well, you'd get tired of staying in one place for a long time, as long as you're human. Furthermore, in a place like a palace, no matter how much fun it is, it could never retain people's hearts." "Of course, I will take you out tomorrow," Zhu Kai promised. Zixi Fairy's memory loss was both good and bad for Zhu Kai. The good thing was that it was more convenient for him to do things, while the bad thing was that he would now get lonely. In this vast world, he is afraid that he'd be the only one who knows that all these are just illusions and that they were all fake. Zhu Kai could not help but sigh as he thought of that. How melancholic, how boring. This illusory realm is so freaking dull. Can't I have something happen to act tough? My Gatling gun, my tank, my aircraft carrier, are all thirsting for action. I don't want to live like a salted fish. Just like the flame that cannot be wrapped in paper, the news of the smelting room ultimately spread. News that the blacksmiths were studying bullets and guns had leaked. Monarch Jin has had a rough time ever since his daughter was kidnapped. Several months had passed, and she was nowhere to be found, as if she had disappeared without a trace. However, he also heard some rumors about the Empress Dowager's recent bizarre behavior. She often stayed in her chamber and ordered that no one should be allowed to come near. And when she went to her chamber, she would always bring food from the imperial kitchen. After nightfall, she would then go to a different chamber to sleep. All kinds of signs showed that there were other people living in the Empress Dowager's Pure Heart Palace. To confirm his suspicions, he finally sent people to investigate. That was when the smelter was discovered to be developing new weapons and using a large amount of gunpowder. This was reported to the Emperor immediately. 2 men personally went to the smelter's house. Upon witnessing the pile of pistols and bullets, they finally lost their cool. The Lord, in particular, was aggravated because, according to Butler's description, the young page who took away the princess had used similar weaponry, just bigger in size. Once they returned to the Emperor's study, both of them fell gravely silent. By then, even the most foolish would have guessed what was up. The Lord finally spoke. "Your Majesty, it's now very clear that the young page is living in the Empress Dowager's palace." Silence. The Emperor glared at him angrily and intensely. which effectively stopped the Lord from continuing. Although the Lord's heart was full of rage, he dared not flare at the Emperor and bowed deeply. After taking a few breaths, the Emperor said calmly, "Walls have ears. Do not announce this yet, but you can rest assured, I will give you an explanation regarding the matter of the young princess." "Thank you, Your Majesty." The Lord was relieved. The Empress Dowager's reputation was at stake after all. He was afraid that the Emperor would sacrifice his daughter to preserve the Empress Dowager's integrity. "Lord, what do you think of that weapon?" asked the Emperor suddenly, shooting a thoughtful look at the Lord. The Lord pondered for a moment before realization dawned on him. Taken aback, he said, "Your Majesty, are you thinking of—" "Yes, now that the border states are growing stronger, it is getting difficult to suppress them. However, if I could own this thing, my soldiers would be as powerful as tigers with wings fixed on them. They would fight as if the heavens were on their side. I already see my great purpose to unify the whole world coming true in the near future," the Emperor declared, his eyes filled with ambition and excitement. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." The Lord could hardly contain his eagerness. He had long realized the extraordinary potential of weaponry. "Before that, I have a mission for you. It would also allow you to kill your enemy with your own two hands," the Emperor continued, with a slight chill in his eyes. "Since the criminal has got such a powerful weapon, we cannot allow him to use it. Assemble 1,000 dare-to-die soldiers and distribute these guns and ammunition to them. By tomorrow evening, you will eliminate the criminal at the Pure Heart Palace. Remember, do not alarm the Empress Dowager about this for the time being." "At your command." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Chapter 759, Surprise. Big surprise. The next day, Zhu Ke buried himself in bed and refused to get up. Back when he was still a cultivator, he could go for days without sleep and still feel spirited and energetic. However, now that he has become immortal, he feels like he's about to die just from pulling 2 all-nighters. Luckily, the system has an automatic recovery ability. Otherwise, his body would have deteriorated completely in spite of being here for only a few months. He slept till noon, and then he finally opened his eyes lazily. Right away, he began to sigh to himself. "I just can't help it. Every day is just too dull. Gone are the glorious days when I was still the act-tough king. To think that I would fall so low into the dirt like this. How depressing." Sigh. Zhu Ke let out another deep sigh as he called out to the system interface once again. He wanted to play with whatever fun stuff he could find in there. After going through most of the system store, nothing much caught his attention other than the cigarettes. However, as he opened the system parcel, what he saw managed to stop him for a second. Inside the parcel compartment lay 3 gift bags. They had been unopened since when Zhu Ke was at the original infant stage. They are called the Big Growth Gift Bags. He would obtain a Big Growth Gift Bag for every cultivation sub-level that he had broken, as it always gave things inferior to the Big Mystery Bag. He had never wanted to waste time opening it. Now, however, boredom got the better of him. "They're gonna lie in the dust if I don't open them. Opening these bags for fun is okay. I'll open them while using the lucky aura. I can't possibly get rubbish items with that." Zhu Ke smirked, then quickly sat up in bed. With his mind, he activated the lucky aura, and at the same time fixed his gaze on one of the Big Growth gift bags. He quietly uttered, "Open." Swoosh. Immediately, the gift bag opened, and a few beams of light flew into some of the system parcel blank spaces. Basic puppet spell, the favorite spell of the evil faction. Activation requires no need for true core strength. Drip your blood on it and then paste it on a cultivator or a mortal. You could then control their thoughts and actions. Note: this spell is basic and could only control mortals and cultivators below the foundation building stage. Signal booster. This item is a tool to boost the sending and reception of signals. The more boosters you have, the greater the effectiveness. This is freaking awesome. Zhu Ke's eyes lit up at these 2 items. Objectively speaking, these items are still rubbish. However, in the situation that Zhu Ke is stuck in this illusory realm, the basic puppet spell is something that could work almost like divine equipment. First, it doesn't need true core strength to activate, which is crucial. because it will work for the current mortal Zuke. Next, this spell can control people's thoughts and actions, making it even stronger than hypnosis. It's extremely powerful. Ha, ha, I will control the Empress Dowager and order her to marry me into the royal. Oh no, beg me to marry her. Then I'd be the Emperor's father. There's no need for me to go through so much trouble just to unify the world. Zuke got excited at that thought. He's now so genuinely bored that he's about to go crazy. Though, the appearance of this spell has helped him to find some fun in life. But what the heck is a signal booster? Is this the same type of tool as the red rope of marriage and the black rod? What the? I'm now in the world of cultivators. What use do signals have here? Zuke looked at the second item. Disdain quickly filled his face as he shook his head vigorously. This item could be useful on Earth, but it had no place in the world of cultivators. Who would build a signal station here? As if we could make a call to Earth with this. Wait a minute, don't tell me that this can be used too. Crap. Zuke jumped up immediately at the thought, his heart racing. If this tool can amplify signals until he could contact Earth with it, it would be invincible. No way. I have to test this now. Without hesitation, Zuke threw aside the basic puppet spell that had just delighted him and took out the signal booster straight away. Though it was called the signal booster, it looked just like a typical antenna. With one hand, Zuke quickly put the antenna near the window. He then called the system store and redeemed a smartphone. However, the most crucial problem occurred. There is no SIM card in the phone. Zuke searched the whole system store, but he couldn't find a SIM card, or anything related to it. For crap's sake, system, that's too unprofessional. How could you sell phones but not their SIM cards? What is wrong with you? Zuke berated exasperatedly. The system replied coldly. According to the host's planet data, companies that sell phones do not necessarily sell SIM cards. Crap. Zuke was rendered speechless. What else could he do? The system was right. There wasn't any rule stating that phone sellers must also sell SIM cards. HMMPH. So infuriating. Zuke felt extremely angry. The chance to contact Earth was right in front of his eyes, but he couldn't do anything just because he didn't have a SIM card. Wait. Suddenly, Zuke thought of something, then quickly asked, System, can the debt collector beat status function do anything else other than beating people up? Ding. The host now has one chance to use the debt collector beat status function. This function is not limited to beating up people. It includes debt collection, guest appearances, airport pickups, running errands, etc. Replied the system. A window popped up at the same time. The system interface had listed the price list for all sorts of functions. Beating up people and debt collection were the most costly, followed by guest appearances and airport pickups, though surprisingly, running errands was cheap. That's it. The running errands function was made just for him. System, I'm using the debt collector beat status function. Find someone to buy a SIM card on Earth, then deliver it to me. Zuke smiled, immensely excited. He wouldn't have the chance to use the beating up function of the debt collector beat status in these few decades anyway. The debt collectors under this function are all extremely powerful, and anyone on that list would need millions of acting tough points to activate. It's an amount Zuke could not afford. The errand running function, on the other hand, was different. It offered an excellent service for an even prettier price, and the amount is tailored for each errand runner. As Zuke screened the list, his eyes fell on the top-ranked runner, Act Tough King Yikayu. Ayo, what the heck? Son of a gun, how dare this imposter use my title? Zuke almost jumped up in a fury. Even the title of Act Tough King isn't exclusive these days. How is that even legal or acceptable? So he's called the Act Tough King, but putting that aside, how can someone with that title charge so little? Just one acting tough point for an errand? What's the difference between that and doing it for free? Zuke, would rather die than do that. I won't let you even earn one acting tough point. I'll find someone else. Zuke complained. He couldn't stand other people acting tough in front of him. However, his dissatisfaction quickly died when he looked at the prices of others on this list. Rank 2 on the list, Act Tough King Shenbakusuan, charges 100,000 acting tough points per errand. Rank 3 on the list, Act Tough King Li K, charges 1 million acting tough points per errand. Forget it, I'm not a petty person. As a superior person, I've got to be magnanimous. Ye Kaiyu is good. I'll let you have the title of Act Tough King. As for me, ho, from this day on, I will be the Act Tough Saint Zhu Ke. Zhu Ke talked to himself and decided to ignore the Rank 2 and Rank 3 errand runners, who charged exorbitant fees. He clicked on the name Ye Kaiyu and entered his function introduction page. Ye Kaiyu carries the city's greatest Act Tough system, loyal to his country, righteous, has a cute daughter. He acts tough in the city? What the heck, are Act Tough systems so common nowadays? Zhu Ke wondered out loud, but didn't dwell too much on it. He had read countless web novels in his past life and was accustomed to all different kinds of systems. He is interested in the daughter mentioned in the introduction though. System? What kind of skimpy introduction is this? How old is Ye Kaiyu's daughter? How is she cute? Do you have a photo? Can she make the delivery instead? I will put up both hands to prove my innocence when meeting her," asked Zhu Ke. However, the system remained silent. Zhu Ke couldn't do much about it, so he stopped thinking about it. With his heart brimming with excitement, he placed an order with Ye Kaiyu to buy a SIM card and also for him to bring some cigarettes. No choice, the cigarettes in the system are too expensive. Those on Earth are slightly more affordable. Ding! Congratulations! Your order has been placed successfully. Your order is awaiting delivery. The lead time will be 1 month to 10 years. 1 month to 10 years? I% and %% at #at. Chapter 760. He squanders like a king. Sigh. Zhu Ke fell back onto the bed, consumed by boredom once again. Placing an order with the debt collector Beats Debtors had given him some hope, but the wait time of 1 month to 10 years on the display screen was such a downer. It had extinguished his joy like a bucket of cold water, drenching him from head to toe. He could have accepted the wait if it had been a month or even a few months. However, 10 years, that was just too long. He might have even returned to Earth by then. Sigh. Zhu Ke sighed again. He could only pray that the Act Tough King Ye Kaiyu would deliver, and that he would receive the SIM card before he returned to Earth. Without a SIM card, he couldn't even check if the booster could receive signals from Earth. How depressing. A third sigh. The next instant, his gaze swept toward the other 2 big growth gift bags in the system interface. Should he try again? What if it gives him a SIM card right away this time? Yeah, what if? Anticipation filled Zhu Ke once more, and he quickly leaped from his bed. To maximize his luck, he carefully washed his hands before activating the lucky aura. He then opened the second big growth gift bag. Swoosh! As with his previous try, a few beams of light flew straight into the blank spaces in his parcel. Basic puppet spell. Basic puppet spell. Signal booster. What the hell? What's going on? Where's my SIM? Zhu Ke buried his head in his hands, apparently desperate. The only difference was that the second bag just had 1 extra basic puppet spell. This can't be it. I'll try the last one. He bit the inside of his cheeks and activated the lucky aura again. High-class puppet spell. Signal booster. Signal booster. Rent-free card. You must be kidding me. Zhu Ke screamed agonizingly. Still no SIM card. He didn't have the only card that mattered, the SIM card, and got a rent-free card instead. Rent-free your ass. I don't need a crappy rent-free card. This third gift bag was nothing but a colossal disappointment to Zhu Ke. It only gave him an extra signal booster, a rent-free card, and an upgraded puppet spell. It functions exactly like the previous one, just that high-level spells can be used on cultivators who are at the great vehicle stage. To Zhu Ke, it was something redundant, though nice to have. He was, however, trapped in this illusory realm. Forget about cultivators in the great vehicle stage. He couldn't even find a cultivator in the chi refining stage. As for the rent-free card, all it does is waive the rent for anything rentable in the store for a day and will expire after 3 uses. Sigh. Forget it. I should be happy with the puppet spell. With this rent-free card, it's time to run amok. Pooh. No, time to act tough. Zhu Ke gathered himself, and, with gusto, recovered himself as the act tough king. He strolled out of the chamber with both hands behind his back, and gazed thoughtfully upon the landscape. A brief moment later, he had put on a neat set of an Imperial Guard uniform and made his way to the next chamber. He strode on, knowing the palace routes like the back of his hand. Who would have guessed that he was no more than an outsider who had just entered the palace? After all, he had spent the past months observing the palace maids and the empress where they sleep, eat, or bathe, all with his drone as he lay comfortably on the bed with nothing better to do. He considered these just observational records of how the ancients lived, more scientifically known as archaeological work. His archaeological work had familiarized him with the structure of the entire palace. He headed to the Emperor's chamber, the Flying Frost Palace. With the help of the drone, he easily avoided the eyes of the Imperial Patrol Guards. He quickly used a basic puppet spell and sneaked in. After a while, he slipped out again and returned to the Empress Dowager's Pure Heart Palace. He quickly called up the system store. With the rent-free card, he started to order all kinds of cutting-edge weapons. Tanks? I'll take 5 squadrons of those. Assault amphibious vehicles? 5 squadrons too. Tracked artillery vehicles? 10 squadrons. Rocket cars? Give me 20 squadrons. Bombers? 10 echelons. Fighter planes? 10 echelons. Iron Man? 20. No. Give me 50 units. Zhu Kai squandered the rent-free card like a king. He milked everything rentable from the system as long as it was possible. He had merely wanted to vent his frustration, to act tough, and to feel good. Before long, many tanks and all kinds of armored vehicles filled the enormous space in front of the Pure Heart Palace. All types of combat aircraft lined up on the sides. He even had 50 different models of Iron Man, which, like an army of steel, waited for his orders. Zhu Kai's mental orders controlled all of them. He stood outside the Pure Heart Palace, and, at the full array laid out before him, his mood finally turned better. Miss Azza, young princess, stop singing karaoke and see me act tough instead. Zhu Kai yelled toward the Pure Heart Palace. He jumped onto a tank. Merely standing on it lifted his heart to high spirits. With so much firepower, Zhu Kai felt a pressing need to conduct a military parade that marched from within the palace to outside the castle gates, circling the imperial city before returning to the castle. It would be impressive. At the same time, the air was heavy in the palace's smelting house. Monarch Jin had summoned 1,000 Dare to Die soldiers from the archery squad and made them go through specialized training. They trained with pistols for a whole day and finally perfected their aims. They were far from good, but the Emperor had ordered them to eradicate Zhu Kai tonight. Their mission tonight was to prevent this technology from flowing into other countries, and every second of delay was costly. HMPH, Huan. When today comes again next year, it will be your death anniversary. A cold smile rested on Monarch Jin's lips as he scanned the 1,000 soldiers in the smelting house. He had already understood from the butler that Zhu Kai had a Gatling gun that could kill several people instantly. However, he brimmed with confidence. 1,000 soldiers firing at the same time would be much more powerful than that thing called a Gatling gun. Soldiers, after tonight, be it in life or death, you will all be heroes of the Li nation. Monarch Jin turned toward the 1,000 soldiers and raised his cup. Whip. 1,000 soldiers all raised their wine cups at the same time and together they yelled, unafraid of life or death, we shall lay our lives down for the Emperor. When their voices fell, everyone swallowed their wine in one shot. The sky gradually darkened. Monarch Jin led 1,000 soldiers out of the smelting house. He directed his intense and icy gaze toward the Pure Heart Palace. The next second, he climbed onto his horse and punched the air, yelling, "Death to Huan! Eradicate the rebel!" 1,000 soldiers thundered after him. Kill him! On his horse, with 1,000 soldiers behind him, Monarch Jin majestically charged toward the Pure Heart Palace.